Good evening, all. Andrew, Riddler Reptiles. And this evening, as we all know, I will be joined by Responsible Reptile Keeping. Thank you for joining. Before we get to introducing Tony, let's have a little look through the comments and see who's around, see who's shown up. Repti Chat, Ben first. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. Also, I'm not here tonight as I'm busy, but I hope the pod goes well. Always a great chat with Tony. Actually, while I remember, because this does link to Responsible Reptile Keeping, Ben is hosting a podcast tomorrow, obviously the Repti Chat podcast, with Sam from SW Exotics. They are doing an auction for some Luminize kit, and the proceeds to that will be going to Responsible Reptile Keeping. So tune into Ben's channel tomorrow for that. You could win some Luminize, and whatever you pay for that will be going to Responsible Reptile Keeping. Dan, yo. Hello, Dan. Thank you for joining, my friend. Dendro Dave, let's go. Hello, my friend. Hello. Thank you for joining. Talking to Devil, Sam. Hello, my friend. There you go. I did tell you I'd shout it out, and there we go. I did it. I didn't forget. Silver Webbers, hello, my friend. Thank you for joining. Dan, of course, Responsible Reptile Keeping in the chat. Dendro and Catty's Reptiles A-Up Pals. Hello, Catty. Thank you very much for joining. Right, well, let's get straight into it. I'm about to introduce Tony, as we know, from Responsible Reptile Keeping. And I tell you what, if this podcast is anything like the things we were just discussing prior to this, you're in for a treat. All right, so let's get Tony in and let's get chatting. Tony, my friend, thank you for joining. How the devil are you?
We're pretty good. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, an absolute pleasure. Actually, just a quick one for the chat. Can you just let us know that my audio is all right? Because I'm pretty sure it is. We've gone through Tony's, but I think we're all good. No one said anything yet, but I think we're good. But yeah, Tony, how are you, my friend? Are you
perfectly well?
Good. I can hear you as well, so that's good. We just got to hope everyone else can hear us.
I can ask Vicky, who's listening in on her computer. Can you hear everything, V? Yeah, I think she can. So
excellent.
There is actually a little bit of a delay, so if I interrupt you at any point, I apologize for that. But that's what happens when you're working with the World Wide Web, I guess.
Yeah, not a problem at all. No worries. So first things first, how are you, Tony? Are you well?
Pretty good. It's been an interesting few days. What have we been focusing on today? So we've been working with the government working group that's looking at reptile shows and, in fact, all animal shows. So we've been doing a little bit of emailing where that's concerned.
Mm-hmm.
We've also been working on our next production with NZB, which is the Norwegian animal advocacy organisation, pet advocacy organisation. If anybody's seen our content before, they might know that Norway had a reptile ban for a while and now has a positive list. And we've talked about the situation there. But now the Norwegian government is thinking about bringing in another reptile ban, which is ridiculous considering we know how well that goes. Not. So, yeah, we're working on a production with them to try and shed some light on that farce. The survey's been going well, but I'm sure we'll get into that later. Yeah, sleep would be a nice thing, but yeah, other than that, it's great.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's a never-ending cycle. There's always something to do. In actual fact, I joke, but sort of don't, that sometimes I go to work for a rest. There's always something to do here. Always.
Yeah, it's a problem with us as well. The list doesn't end, and we have to actively decide when we're going to stop work because there is always something else to do. And in our line of work, it's usually pretty important or sometimes even urgent. So we do have to sometimes say, let's stop. In fact, on Monday, Vicky and I are having 3 whole days off so that we can celebrate our wedding anniversary. 3 days off for our wedding anniversary.
3 days off. Wow. Well, firstly, congratulations. Happy anniversary. 3 days off. I mean, it's funny because before, obviously, I do shift work, and part of that obviously is night shift. So before and after I do nights, I get 4 days off. But when I say 4 days off, I mean, I get 4 days at home to do a lot more than I would be at work. So it's yeah, it's always good fun. I'm here.
Well, we intend to get a proper break. I mean, I've heard about these things before. They're called holidays. They're supposed to be like fun and stuff.
Yeah,
Holidays.
yeah, yeah.
I'll give it a go. Thought I'd try that.
It's worth a go, isn't it? Surely, surely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dendro says congratulations. Catty says
But
happy anniversary. Excellent. Paul is in the chat. He's just late. No worries, Paul. No worries at all, my friend. So first things first, before we get into the questions, obviously you've already mentioned the worldwide super survey. How has that has it was it today that it shut? Today was the last day?
No, it's not at all. The survey that you're talking about that's closed is the EU government's stakeholder consultation into whether or not they want to bring in an EU-wide positive list. And we'll talk about positive lists later.
Yeah.
So the EU released this consultation, I think, in November. I can't remember, a long time ago. And it's been live for a while, but we tried to rev up a few more takers for that survey, which frankly is pulling teeth. It's such an onerous survey to go through, but what do you expect from the EU government? That's what you get. And thank you to everybody who spent the time filling it in, because it must have been well, I can tell you I filled it in. It was an absolute nightmare, and I understand the topic inside out. But that closed today, I think. So we'll keep everybody posted as to how that went, because it was a very interesting process. We can later if you want. There's a load of political subterfuge happening there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Okay, all right, excellent. So how long, for anyone that hasn't done the survey so far, the worldwide super survey, how long have they got left to do so?
Oh, we're releasing it for 3 months, so it'll be here until the end of March. And if you want me to tell you a secret, what will generally happen, the experience with the FBH, who were the originators of the survey, but it was just a UK-based survey when they did it, the Federation of British Herpetologists. What they generally found is that people were blasé until the end of the period, and then used to fill it in at the end. So, do me a favour, fill it in now, will you? So that we don't have to worry about that rush later. And it'll probably take us a few months to process the data. Thankfully, we have Sid from the FBH, who's a professional statistician, and we'll have a bit more data to process because it's international. And we'll probably run that survey every 2 years. And the reason every 2 years is because people just get survey fatigue. And you ask them every year, they're like, oh, Jesus, this again. Whereas if we ask them every 2 years, that probably alleviates some of that fatigue. The difference between 2025 and 2026 might not be much. So we won't miss 2026 if we don't run one then. But if we run it in 2027, there's probably less fatigue and more likely something worth reporting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, excellent. So until the end of March. But that doesn't mean, ladies and gents, if you haven't done it already, that you can do like school homework and leave it until the last minute, or your revision. Make sure you do it as soon as you can, because obviously it's helping. But yeah, excellent. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. There's some interesting background to that study, but just to let everybody know, we've developed the survey. It's really quick and easy to fill in. Most of the time, it's just click here and click there, and less typing. So, if you've got a small collection, it'll take you a few minutes. If you've got a big collection, it might take you a few more.
Well, it's funny. It's one of those. I almost was preparing myself for one of those long typey, very long-winded surveys. So basically, I didn't fill it out straight away. I waited until I had a bit of, I had maybe half an hour spare, maybe on my lunch break or something to do it. And I was done within a few minutes. And I was like, oh, I could have done this sooner, but, I gave myself some time, which isn't a bad thing, but it was quite a nice surprise that it wasn't, because I've done some in the past that, like you say, it's just you're there, you got to put each individual animal and how old is the animal and what state did the animal go. And it's really not that bad. So if you're worried about time constraints, don't unless you basically run your own zoo, essentially.
Well,
uh,
this is partly what we do for a living, is make sure things are um, engaging and enriching, and that the user journey is something that people want to engage with, because
yeah,
it's a very specific audience that we're dealing with, and if we don't keep our audience engaged, they just click and go and do something else. Yeah.
yeah,
So we have to make sure that we take all of the friction out of what we do, so that audiences engage with us and they see some value, etc., etc. Idea behind remodeling the FBH's survey. They did a really great job, and they're doing a really great job over the last few years. That survey has been invaluable, but because of the
hmm
platform they used and the budget and resources they got, it's a bit difficult to fill in sometimes. So we've
yeah,
just sexied it up a little bit, and
yeah, yeah.
hopefully we'll reap rewards from it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. For most of the people that I've spoken to have said that they've done it, so that's good. Um,
Yes.
it's invaluable, though. That's the thing. This is the sort of thing that we need to get done because of what it's trying to achieve and help us accomplish. It's similar to what we were talking to before,
Absolutely.
but yeah, it's invaluable and yeah, vital basically in the position we're in. So yes, if you haven't done it already, please consider doing so. I'm sure there's links everywhere. I'm sure there's somewhere that I can get it to you. Tony will be able to get it to you. Just visit. Yeah, there's going to be a link somewhere. All right, so don't worry about that as well.
Well,
um,
I'm always eager to talk through what the survey is all about and why it is important. So yeah, you pull the trigger on when you want to do that, and I can explain it, because it's the reasoning behind it is quite interesting. But I'm sure you've got questions to ask, so we'll get to that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. I mean, first things first, Catty said it only took me a couple of minutes at most. I did it during one of my work lunch breaks, waiting on my cuppa to cool. There you go. You can do it over a cup of tea. And who doesn't want
Well,
to do it
thank you.
over a cup of tea? So excellent. Thank you, Catty. Links in my Instagram bio too. Dendro Dave, you are a
Bye,
legend amongst men,
Dave.
my friend. Legend. Right, so let's get into some questions then. Let's have a look. Where should we start? Um, in actual fact, first things first, this one came from Dave. Uh, any tips you can give me on how I can put all my focus into new builds and maybe a YouTube channel? So obviously the build side
That's
of
probably
things, it'll be over to
that's
myself, but
probably also
YouTube, I'm
a
sure.
question for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Um,
YouTube's a nightmare. YouTube's a nightmare. Um,
but do you enjoy it though? Do you enjoy YouTube? Because I love it.
how do I explain it? So there's two types of reptile YouTubers. Those that want to pass over information about reptiles, and those that want to be influencers. And
Hmm.
I'm not, either one of those is a decent endeavor, but the way you do it is different. And I think you have to stay true to what you want to achieve. Um, if you want to give people reptile information, you're probably never going to be as big as Brian Barczyk or Snake Discovery.
Hmm.
If you want to do sensational stuff, you've got to set yourself up for criticism for people who think that you're doing it for sensational reasons.
Hmm.
But I think if you've got a passion and you've got information to give, and you can give people that they can't get elsewhere or can't get engagingly elsewhere, then you've got a very good chance. It's
Hmm.
not easy, it really isn't, and a lot of it is down to luck. It really is. One of
Hmm.
the things that I'd one of the things that I'd advise against, and this goes against probably what a lot of potential or aspiring YouTubers and influencers would think, the last thing in the world you want is a viral video. Okay. Now, the reason for this is because if you get a viral video, two things happen. Firstly, you attract a lot of people who are off brand, just don't really click onto what you do. They don't really get it. They saw you one video, and the rest of your stuff probably isn't what they're viewing. They've just viewed for that one video. And the
Mhm.
second thing is all of those viewers now want to see more of the same, and you've got to create more of the same. Yeah. And that is probably impossible. A couple of
Mm.
my friends went viral recently, and they've done quite well. There's some residual stuff, but recreating that viral effect that they've had previously is almost impossible.
Mm.
What I'd recommend instead is just build a very solid, sustainable, you know, audience that grows incrementally and authentically and organically over time. That way, you know you've got the people who are there for you and not because you, I don't know, got struck at by an animal or because, it popped out a bright pink baby or something. I don't know. These
Mm.
things that are not able to be replicated. If you can build an audience who are there for the exact thing that you're delivering, that's a good audience.
Mm. It's very funny you say that, to be fair, because I don't know how many people know this, but obviously I'm on my second Instagram Riddle Reptiles account. And that's because, so I know this isn't YouTube, but the point does remain. My first Riddle Reptiles account, it was growing, it was doing okay, it was doing quite well. And then I had a viral video. 18 million views on a video. And it got me and it was a snake feeding video. This is back when I did things like that. It was frozen thawed, all of that. It was a royal python eating. 18 million views. It got me from about 9,000 followers to about 16,000. So weirdly, not as viral as we've seen some other accounts do. I've had another account go to 40,000 and things like that. So it wasn't the growth that I was expecting. But at the same time, what it also did is once that hype died down, the account just died. It
Generally.
died. There was nothing. I'm talking, I'd upload a reel, and bearing in mind I had 16,000 followers, I'd get maybe 100 views on a reel. So it was just, it wasn't what I was after. Do you know what I mean? I had that vibe and I was like, here we go. It's time. The journey begins. You know what I mean? Let's build on this. Let's go. And it just died. And it got to the point that nothing was happening. So I started a new account. And when I tell you I get more messages, comments, likes, views, everything, and like more of an authentic community as well on this new channel or this new page it's just gone over 1,000 followers, to be fair. It's crazy. The difference is unbelievable. So I know exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure the same goes for YouTube. Unless you can recreate it, the chances are it probably won't kick off. So that's
And what
very
was
true.
what was special about the feeding video to your estimation?
Nothing.
Anything?
Nothing. It must have
Just
been.
random took
It,
off.
it just randomly took off. Maybe I chose the right music and uploaded it at the right time. And apart from that, there was nothing special about it because I'd uploaded feeding videos in the past. This is when I first started getting into royal pythons, and I thought it was quite cool. Like seeing a snake. I thought it's not for people that aren't snake people, but I'm putting it up for my reptile people. Obviously, the thing that made it go a little bit more viral was the people commenting saying this is disgusting, take this down, because they didn't want to see a frozen thawed rat getting eaten by a snake, which I get it. Don't get me wrong. The argument there was, it's a circle of life and blah, blah, blah. But not that I'm defending it, but it is what it is. So that's the thing. It also got negative attention, so
Yeah.
that could be one of the reasons why, because there might have been people seeing that and reporting the page. Maybe that's what did it. You never know.
For my liking, it reminds me of a common saying you hear in marketing circles, which is that only 50% of marketing actually works. We just don't know which 50% it is. So we have to keep doing all of it.
Yeah. That's very good. Very good. Before I carry on, some more people have shown up. Baum, hello, my friend. Thank you for joining. Show me kitties. Don't forget to fondle the like button, chat. That is what I love to hear. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. And also very good advice. Let's hit that like button. Cat the Clown, Andrew Ladd, hello, Cat the Clown. How the devil are you? Thank you for joining. Ben, thank you for joining, my friend. Appreciate you. Oh, here we go. Johnny Newman, Disco Dave, Pajama Man Dan. Good evening, boys. Hello, Johnny. But yeah, and then Dave, with regards to the builds, I adore the builds. I'm literally sat next to my next build now. It's for the blue tongue skink. I've currently got it to a point. I've done all the foaming, the carving. Next up is to do the grouting on it and shape the rock and carve it and turn it into a natural, hopefully, masterpiece. This is how I imagine people who paint feel, or those that write poetry, or those that write books and things. This is how I imagine they feel, because I get lost in these builds, because I see this image in my head that I want to recreate. And when you see it coming together, or even sometimes when you can't see it coming together, when you first put the first bits together and you go, this looks nothing like what I'm after, but I'm going to carry on anyway because I trust the process. And then you start seeing it, that's when you go, all right, let's go. And then, because obviously the one that I have done was the leopard gecko build. I'm so proud of that build. It's not even funny. Like, I still see it now a couple of months later and I go, I did that. Do you know what I mean? I did that. I did my research. I looked at what would benefit a leopard gecko. I looked at their, potential natural habitat, and I recreated it the best I could, and I did it. So it's all about taking pride in your own work. There's nothing wrong with being proud of yourself. Absolutely not. Like, because that's what drives you to do more and do better. So I have the confidence in all my build. I'm just nervous to recreate that on a larger scale. Start smaller, if that's the case. If that's start with something smaller. I don't know if you've got geckos or anything, or you just go absolutely, excuse my language, balls to the wall. Just go straight into it, and whatever happens, happens. You take whatever you did wrong into the next one. You take whatever you did right into the next one. It's just a learning curve, basically. Yeah.
That translates into YouTube as well. That
Yeah.
it's almost definite that your first YouTube video is going to be shit. And then onwards from that, they get shitter until they get better. We look back at our early content, and it makes, I'm proud of it because that's where we started and it did a really good job.
Yeah.
But the progress we've made in the last 2 years, just because we kept on doing it, kept on learning, getting better, kept on having a go at it, that's what it's all about, I think. You only get better with practice.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like, because it's probably going to get to the point in the future, after I do a few more builds, that I look at that leopard gecko build and go, actually, maybe I did do that right. Maybe I should have done what I did in this build here. So it's all, I don't think I'll ever be done with the background builds, ever. Like, I'll probably finish them and go, right, that one could be done better again. So it's all part of the fun and actually enjoying the process. And like you say, it's the same with YouTube. Your first video is going to suck. Your first 10 videos are probably going to suck. Your next 10 might be a little bit better, and you tweak, you get better, and you just enjoy the process. Yeah, 100%.
Get on with it, mate. I'm sure you'll be great.
Yeah, let's do it. Can we ask questions tonight, or you got them all written down already? I do have a lot written down, but I'm sure we can come to the chat as well if needs be.
I'll just check in with a couple of listeners. Vicky's watching this broadcast on her computer, and we're not sure whether I'm freezing because there's two of us on the same Wi-Fi, and we're wondering whether or not I'm freezing for everybody else as well.
You might be a little bit. Chat, if you can let us know if Tony is freezing, that would be ideal. I think it might be a little bit, but I don't think it's horrendous. I think it's like a slight delay. But yeah, let us know in the chat, please, everyone. Phil, thank you for joining, my friend. Appreciate you. For King Dobby. Yes, that build is for King Dobby.
I will be in touch, Phil, by the way.
Excellent. When I move, I'm doing a new build myself. Can't wait. Excellent. Love to hear it. Wayne, thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Wayne.
I know if I managed the big build, it would come out sick. 100%, my friend. So get cracking. Get cracking and keep us up to date. 100%. We're good getting things ready for C's. Oh, is that an invert show that's this weekend potentially? I think. I can't remember. Enjoy the journey. Yeah. I'm heading to Sheffield for the smaller show. C's is too far for me, but I hope you both have it. Yeah, I thought it was. Okay. I've recently learned that turning half a room into a Viv takes longer than I thought. Yeah. Yeah, whilst I'm sat here next to an
What's in that half
8x4
room
by
bed?
7. Yeah.
What are you putting in a half room bed?
Yeah, let us know. I'm pretty sure it's a monitor of some sort, or potentially monitors. But
Yeah.
yeah. Let's have a look. There we go. So Catty said, "You're freezing a little for me." Johnny said, "No,
Ooh,
all good." Kat said, "A
okay.
tiny bit, but not too bad. Slightly laggy. The stream is pretty good." Okay, so not too bad. It freezes a little bit, but not horrendous.
If it gets too
Much
untidy,
love,
let me know,
Andrew.
and I'll get Vicky to come and swear at it. And she usually fixes my IT problems if I swear at things.
That's it. Ideal. No worries, Tony. I'm doing an 8-foot build when I move. Excellent. But just prepare yourself, because it's hard work, as I know from the Rudicolis build. That thing nearly killed me. Green tree
Ooh,
monitor. Oh, Baum, you're a man after my own heart, my friend. You're a man after
I
my
have
own
a lot of
heart.
envy.
Unbelievable. What an animal. But yes, so that was question number 1. In actual fact, while we're on the topic of monitor lizards, we'll just do a very brief one on this one. This one came from Leopard Gecko YouTube, which, shout out to Rebecca. Appreciate you for watching and appreciating my stuff. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. And she said, "Monitor lizards, how sharp are their claws, and do you have to trim them?" Their claws are sharp, very sharp.
I have the
So my
scars.
Rudicolis obviously are an arboreal species, so they've got the claws to climb, and I've had them on my arm before. They're not even trying to run away. They're just moving. They're just
Holding
walking,
on. Yeah.
and those things go straight through the skin. Like, it comes away and it looks like you've been up to no good. It is savage. So yes, they are. Obviously, it's different if you've got a little Aki. They're still sharp little pincers, but it's not going to do much damage. So yes, as far as I'm aware, no, you don't trim them. I don't trim mine. I think it's more, as long as they can naturally, obviously, keep them to within certain parameters with their environment. So if they're on rock, if they're on cork, if they're on wood, it sort of helps keep them trimmed, I guess. So no, you don't as such. And also, I couldn't imagine anything worse than trying to trim Ragnar's claws. I couldn't think of, and it would make for good content. It would be viral content. It's not something I'd want to recreate, though. So there we go. We're linking the first 2 questions already.
It'd be slasher content, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Slash the horror movie.
It
I
would.
used to
It
get asked
definitely
when I
would.
was younger whether or not I was having a tough day because I'd got all these terrible slashes on my arms. I'd be like, got an iguana. And that would open a whole new conversation. But yeah, it did look awful. And I've still got
Yeah.
scars from it.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I do on my hands as well, to be fair. But yeah, so I hope that answers the question. But in all fairness, it's also worth it, because to have a monitor lizard in your care is unlike anything else. It's unlike anything else. I know me and Catty have been speaking a lot about, obviously, keeping monitor lizards. Obviously, she's got Squid, the captive bred mangrove from Paul, and the intelligence, the character, the just everything about these animals is unbelievable. So I think they're worth a couple of scratches, to be completely honest with you. In actual fact, there you go. You get used to it, says Dan.
You're a
uh,
tough guy though. I never
yeah.
got used to it.
Got to dip out and drop off my son. Won't be long, guys. No worries, Dendro. You take care of yourself, my friend. Drive safe. Talking to yeah, Squid's claws are probably close to the size of my nails already, and he's only young. Yeah, wouldn't trim them. They can be super gentle with them, but also you kind of have to accept some pretty deep cuts. Yeah, literally, exactly that. Even just a little sharp movement can cause a pretty deep thing, but you live with it. Yeah, absolutely. Eric bit my finger on accident, tore it to bits. Oh, savage. Ben, remind us what species Eric is, because that will make us either go, oh, or oh, okay. Let's have a look. Right, so
What we're talking about as well is sorry, what we just discussed in there in passing was a big topic within reptile keeping politics, which is how dangerous reptiles are.
Yeah.
And we've just been talking about, oh, it's terrible. You get a little scratch, or he has a little nibble, and it feels terrible. But comparatively speaking, and statistically speaking, reptiles are actually the second safest pet you can keep. Can you guess what the safest pet is?
Chat, help me out here. What, like almost like species, almost like.
Oh, a penny kept animal, safest kept animal. I'll
See,
tell
I
you,
definitely
it's
go on.
it's fish. Fish are the safest pet you can keep.
There you go.
Then, yep,
Fish.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then next it's reptiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they create the fewest number of visits to A&E departments caused by animals. And
Yeah.
then when you get up the other end, you've got cattle, but that's largely an industry thing, like a professional thing. It's professional cattle ranchers in America that
Yeah.
the most deadly animal is cattle. But really, if we're talking about kept pets, then we're talking about things like horses, because
Yeah.
if they bite you, kick you, headbutt you, throw you
Yeah.
off, that's
Yeah.
going to mess you up. And then,
Yeah.
of course, we get down to dogs and then cats. But there was a lady killed recently by a bite from a hamster.
Wow. What, did it get infected or something? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
See,
yeah,
it's funny
reptiles,
because
not so bad.
that's something I used to say, because obviously most of the time when people don't keep reptiles, they ask, do they bite? Do they scratch? Do they do this? And every single time, what I say to people is of course, they have the potential to bite. Everything with a mouth has a potential to bite. Of course they do. And I always say to them, but at the same time, I would rather get bitten by
Um,
almost anything in this room than a hamster.
yes, absolutely. And this, I think, is good for reptile keepers to hold in context when we're talking to people, because reptiles are, some of the safest animals you can keep. Okay, we can go up the other end and go for king cobras, or African rock pythons, or they have potential. But the vast majority of the 1,400 plus species that we keep in the UK that we know of because of these surveys are hardly going to draw blood and hardly going to send you to hospital. You really ought to not be letting people worry about reptiles being dangerous, because statistically, contextually, they're not.
I mean, I've had a couple of accidental bites from royal pythons. Again, all my fault. And you know what? It hurt. It hurt my feelings. That's it. That's it. I was like, oh, really? I thought we were all. I thought we were cool, but I would rather get bitten by a royal python than a hamster any day of the week. I've been bitten by a hamster. It's savage. It's so savage. Like, those teeth are no joke.
And I have to say that I've worked with what used to be Europe's largest large python collection, and I've worked with some pretty serious venomous collections. And thankfully, I've never been bitten by anything venomous,
Mhm.
and I've never been bitten by anything over 9 foot. And that was a
Okay.
9 foot, 8 foot, and that was a Taiwanese beauty snake.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that that brought a tear to my eye and left a
Yeah.
finger. But
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
you know, not too bad, really, considering the breadth of the risks that I've supposedly taken.
Yeah, 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 exactly that, exactly that. What are we saying? So to be fair, Baum said, when we said the safest pet to keep, Baum did say isopod. That's not a bad one.
I
Johnny,
think that's a
I'm
fair
not.
point.
Johnny, I'm not putting up what you wrote, because it's before 9
Oh,
p.m. So
no.
Emma has asked a question. We'll come back to that in a mo. I've never been bitten by any of my reptiles, but I've been bitten by cats and dogs before. There you go. People use more caution with reptiles and being bitten versus fluffy hamsters. I guess that's where complacency comes into play as well, doesn't it? Because you see the
Yeah.
soft, fluffy animal, and you think, "What a beautiful little sweetheart." You see the snake, and you go, "Oh my god, keep it away from me." Oh, by the way, for Cat and Show Me Kitties, I do like hamsters as well. That's not me saying I don't like them. I'm just saying I don't want to take a bite from one.
Here's a good jump in for you then, while we're on the subject of hamsters. So in the Netherlands, they've just introduced a positive list for mammals, and think it's Russian hamsters are now banned, but Chinese hamsters are allowed. So, do you know the difference between a Chinese hamster and a Russian hamster?
Apart from where they come from, no.
No, neither does the Dutch government, because on their website where they put which ones you can keep and which ones you can't keep, they've put the wrong picture. And what we also know is that the biggest breeder of Russian hamsters in the Netherlands, don't ask me how, managed to get rid of all of Russian hamsters, and suddenly overnight they've been replaced with Chinese hamsters. Now, I don't know how she managed to do that so quickly, but
That's
you know,
efficiency for you, my friend. That is
it
very
is.
efficient.
I
Yeah, yeah.
wonder how that happened, or even if anybody would be able to tell the difference. You know, but to say that one of those is banned and one of those isn't, you know, demonstrates the ridiculous futility of positive lists.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I tell you what, let's just quickly jump onto Emma's question here before we carry on with the one sent in. We can make this quite brief. Firstly, Emma, thank you for joining. How does
No.
Tony's work day go? When you finish that day's work, what does that entail?
Um, this is going to sound really corny, and I, I have to say that we mean it. Vicky and I have this conversation regularly, and the distinction between our work and our leisure time isn't as polarized as most people. Um, we're really passionate about what we do, and getting up for work is actually quite compelling. Yeah. So we work and we choose to down tools at a time dependent on the urgency of the projects that we're working on. So right
Mhm.
now, this is work for me, although not really, is it? It's 8:45, and it's not even unusual for us to be working at this time.
Yeah.
Um, we we don't drink really. We'll have the odd glass of wine. Vicky will sometimes. I don't really drink. I never got very good at it. Um, but it's true. You know, when I was in my 16, 18, when everybody else was getting bladdered, I was working with a big venomous collection. So you don't go to work with a hangover. And I was
No.
working on the door in nightclubs in the nighttime. So you don't go to work and get drunk.
Yeah.
So I just never really got very used to drinking. We don't
Yeah.
drink, we don't smoke, we haven't got a TV on the boat. I don't know if everybody realizes we live on a boat. We don't have a TV on the boat. We don't have a season ticket to the local football. We enjoy our work, and when we want to do recreation things, we either go out for dinner, which we do a lot. That's our real recreation, and we spend that time talking about stuff that's usually not work. And in the evening, sometimes we watch, you know, box set stuff. So we'll get through Game of Thrones. We've just done Shrinking and also Silo. So, you know, we watch a little bit of TV, you know, a couple of nights a week. But
Yeah.
mostly it is just work. And we're really pleased that we've got something that we can work together and put our heart and soul into. Corny on it.
But the thing is, that comes down to the old saying of if you do something you enjoy, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I think that's something everyone should aspire to do. I know I do. I know that's what
Yeah,
I'm trying to do.
I think that's a decent principle if you can get it. And I
Mm.
have to say that even though I work in a sector that I absolutely adore, working with reptiles, and even though I do something that I'm really passionate about, that doesn't stop me being pissed off and angry and frustrated and saying, "Oh, sod all this! I've had enough," or that tiny little inconvenience has pissed me off.
Yeah.
But I also definitely have a lot of respect for people who jobs for the sake of doing that job, getting that job done, and then going home to their family and providing for their family. You know, not everybody can do what we do, and I wouldn't recommend it to people. It's not very well paid, and it can destroy your soul sometimes.
Mm.
You know, just having a job is a credit enough. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you for the question.
yeah,
Let's have a
thank you.
look. Ferret, probably the worst bite I've had. Tree monitor, not even close. There you go. There you go. Wish I loved my job. Yeah, me and Kat talk about our jobs because we both do shift work. So there's times where it's like
Oh
4 o'clock in
man,
the morning and we're like, still at work? Yeah, finish in 2 hours. Yeah, off to bed in a bit.
respect for shift workers, respect for shift workers, honestly.
It's
Especially shift workers and people with jobs who have families. We don't have kids. I don't know how you guys run a job, run a reptile collection, do a podcast, and look after your kids. Honestly, I don't know how you do it. It's amazing to my view, and again, a lot
yeah,
of respect.
it's tough. I mean, because things have almost been added slowly over the last few years. It's almost like you get, so you got the house, yeah, you get a few reptiles, yeah, you got to look after the house and the reptiles. Okay, fine. And you get some more reptiles, maybe, yeah. And then the baby comes along. Right, okay, so this time is now being detracted here. I need to sacrifice something. For me, that ended up being my gaming. I did enjoy sitting on the Xbox or PlayStation on my downtime, but then obviously it was a case of, do I get rid of the reptiles and not look after them, or do I just have an extra hour looking after the kids or looking at and doing that?
24 hours a day,
Yeah,
prioritize what you need to do. Fair play
exactly.
to you for managing to juggle it all, mate.
Yeah,
Vicky and I
um,
sometimes joke about not having kids, and we say, um, all that piss and puke and screaming and late nights, it's not really fair to bring children into that environment. So we
love that.
just joke, of course, but yeah.
Of course, yeah, yeah. But yeah, then obviously on top of that, then you bring the second child into it, which we're living now. She's only 9 months old. On top of now, my boy is 2.5. He's I wouldn't call it a terrible twos, but his cheekiness levels at the minute. He's pushing boundaries. He's testing to see what he can get away with. And when you've got that on top of a
They
screaming
become
baby that needs a
self-aware, don't
bottle
they?
before bed, they do. They do. It's unbelievable. He's just like he's my best friend. He really is. But I tell you what, he's starting to learn how to push on his parents' nerves now. He knows, and he knows because he smiles when he does it. And sometimes you can't help but go, no, and you're laughing because it's funny. It is, but obviously I can't show that weakness. But yeah, it's and then obviously like I say, then
Yeah.
you got shift
I
work.
get to be,
You know,
yeah, I get to
it's
be cool Uncle Tony. Cool Uncle Tony with the tattoos and the reptiles and the boat and the,
that's it.
and the other stuff. And I get to teach him how to swear and, you know, it's, it's my job. And then I give
The
him
fun
back full of,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
excellent. Let's have a look. Uh, okay, I'm back. Sorry, no, that's all right, my friend. No worries. Currently on nights. Oh, good luck. Good luck. Um, okay, before we carry on with the questions sent in, we've got one here. Question: if the animals weren't a thing, what would you do and why? I'll send that over to you first, Tony.
Well, that's an interesting one because before we launched responsible reptile keeping, animals were kind of a peripheral thing for us. And our job was communication, our job was media. So we worked in museums, and it actually crosses over quite a lot in the work that we do, believe it or not. So our job in museums was when you go to a museum, there's something in a case and you don't know what it is, so read the blurb on the panel. Our job was to produce the panels. And it's an interesting communications process because if you go to a museum and you start reading the panels and they're crap and they're boring, what do? You just take your phone out and go to the cafe and forget it all. Yeah, you're just there for entertainment. If you go to work and somebody gives you a boring report, you have to read it. Or if you're at university and somebody gives you a boring textbook, you have to read it. Yeah. Our audience, your audience, audience are not like that. If we don't engage people, if we don't make it enriching, then people just take their phone off and go and do something less boring instead. So my job has always been to distill all of this information and detail and jargon down to something that our specific audience wants to engage with. And I've always been, I've always enjoyed doing that work and communicating in a way that people can relate to.
Mm,
So that's something that we would do and could do, enjoy doing.
mm. For me, I don't know. I've had quite a few hobbies in my time. Obviously, I'm into my photography, aviation, aviation photography, astrophotography. I like football. I like gaming. So I've always had little things that keep me entertained, but I've never had anything that keeps me quite as much as the reptiles and the animals do. So if
I
not
suppose
animals,
in that's it. Sorry to interrupt again. There is a bit of a
no, no,
delay.
you're
So
right.
when I think you've stopped talking, I jump in and you haven't stopped
You're
talking.
all
My apologies. But
right.
the distinction between doing something professionally and doing something for leisure, I think, is an important one. And
Yeah,
while a lot of people might think that doing reptiles for a living is a dream, and it certainly can be and is, there's also a price to pay,
mm,
and that's an important consideration. You've got to be willing to pay the price if it's not all enjoyable. And for us, in terms of our leisure time, if it wasn't animals, we go to the gym,
yeah,
and beyond that, it's all animals.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, my answer is I'm not sure. It's funny because even if you take the animals away, I probably still wouldn't have time for anything else. Something it would get filled somewhere.
And it
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know. That's a good question. Good question. Um, just a quick one. So, Andrew, would you mind asking if anyone knows what the cause of the black stomach on that baby beardy rescue I showed you, please? Okay, that's an interesting one. So let me see if I can show you the photo and see if anyone in chat is able to give a bit more. So basically, Silver Webbers, Rebecca here, has rescued a baby beardy from a not so nice situation. Someone who said that they don't require UVB and they were on reptile carpet and all of that. So she's luckily taken this baby beardy on, sorry. And this is how, if you can see that, hang on, is it going to work? So that's how the
Oh,
baby beardy's belly was. Apparently, it doesn't feel like a burn. It's not rough. It almost looks more internal than anything else. Um, so we're just wondering what it could be. If anyone's seen it before or if anyone knows what it could be. But any sort of, if anyone's seen it before or anything, any advice, please feel free to send it our way. But yeah, so Tony, is it anything you've seen before potentially?
no, I haven't. Yeah, again, we'll probably come on to this, but my ability to identify that kind of thing is probably 20 years old as well. So
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's worth a shot. But
been
if
a while
anyone in
since I've
chat,
worked with beardies. Yeah.
yeah, if anyone in chat has seen that before or has got any advice, please either send that to myself or obviously Rebecca Silver Webbers. There you go. This goes back to what we were saying. Structure, routine is key. So that's how obviously working, having kids, and doing the
Yeah,
reptiles.
man.
Um, Love that. I don't have a baby, so my PS5 is my baby. I wish. um, what I meant was, what do you do to get ahead of the antis? Like, are you cold calling politicians or something?
Oh, right, that's interesting. Um, there's a few ways of tackling what the antis are doing. So traditionally, we've had organizations like US Arc, and in the UK, we've got Repta. And there's similar organizations in many of these different countries, in many different countries. And their primary job has been to interface with government, whether that be lobbying, advisory, government working groups, or, raising queries with ministers, etc. That's an important that's probably the most important you can do. It's the most urgent emergency fixing job you can do. In, Here in the UK, we've been pretty good at that. It's becoming more difficult. The animal rights campaigners are far more organised, well funded, and have a greater capacity and resource to interact with government than we do. When I say we, I mean me, my colleagues, and other people who work in this arena. Um, we punch above our weight because our arguments and our points are usually a lot more sensible and considered and based in facts and evidence and experience. whereas the animal rights campaigners work on misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, lies, and sensationalism. So that's that. And we're always underrepresented. So the more people we have inputting into that political process, the better. And we're certainly inputting into that political process in areas. However, our primary job as responsible reptile keeping is more of a media communications, public relations, fact checking, misinformation challenging process. Because let's have a look at reptile keeping over the last 20, let's just use 20 years. I've been doing it nearly 40 years. Yeah. How long have you been at it, Andrew?
Uh, seriously, in the current one, probably about 3 or 4 years. I did get my first reptiles maybe about 9 or 10 years ago, though.
Okay, well, looking back to that 9 or 10 years ago, how far has reptile keeping come in that 9 or 10 years? Has husbandry and welfare improved much?
It's night and day. It really is absolutely night and day. Now,
Exactly.
the one thing that I will say is I don't know if there was maybe it was less accessible to get the information, or whether maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places, or both. But all I know is now there is no excuse for poor husbandry, poor keeping, misinformation.
I'd largely agree with that.
Mm,
But to come back to the idea that in the last 10 years it's come on exponentially,
yeah.
imagine how much it's changed since I started nearly 40 years ago. I know I look very
Yeah.
young, by the way, but I started very early. Um, so we were only just getting to grips with the benefit, the fact that UV light was a thing that we needed. Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't know anything about Ferguson zones or infrared lighting, heating, and radiation. We didn't know anything about, I don't know, so many things. So it's come on no end. And I would say that now reptiles are probably among the, if not the best kept animal taxa on the planet. Of all the ones you can keep, the reptile keeping has come on so far, and the provisions and the science and the knowledge and the way that reptile keepers do their thing, or the vast majority of them anyway, has come on a long way. So here's a question for you. If we're so good at reptile keeping, why do we have more shit from animal rights campaigners and more trouble and legislation than ever before? We've got USR, we've got Repta that do absolutely vital, important work. That's necessary. Why are we having more trouble if they're doing their work and we're so good at reptile keeping? Why are we having more trouble from animal rights campaigners than ever before? Go for it. Why?
Is it social media sensationalizing the poor side of things? Is it the viral
Absolutely.
videos? Is it the big, and obviously that on top of the fact that it's probably easier to attack animals that people know, are less cared for by the general public, because they're not soft and fluffy, because they're cold and scaly.
You've covered a lot of ground there, and you're absolutely right in all aspects. In that, everything we do is far more visible now.
Yeah.
Um, Instead of just being in somebody's back bedroom, out of sight and not in scrutiny, we're under scrutiny now, and bloody good, very happy, as we well should be. Yeah,
Hmm.
but I think the important thing to consider is that animal rights campaigners have spent the last 15 to 20 years telling lies about us, building their case, saying whatever they like about us on the internet. Things such as, oh, reptiles can't be kept well in captivity. They should be left in the wild. They're going to eat all your children. You're going to catch the next COVID pandemic. They're going to become invasive in Glasgow. Blah, 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 bullshit,
Yeah.
bullshit, bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've spent a long time propagating that propaganda, and it's easy to suck up. If you don't know any different, it's easy to suck up. So if
Yeah.
you're in government, are you interested in reptiles? Probably not. Who are you listening to? Probably the RSPCA and so-called welfarist organizations who have an agenda to ban reptile keeping. So this is essentially what's been happening. The animal rights campaigners telling lies about us have had control of the narrative for the last 15 or 20 years. And we've all seen this bullshit on the internet, and it makes us mad. It makes me mad. Made me livid. Yeah, and this is why we try to bolt our expertise, our communications expertise, onto the side of Repta, because we, in addition to the lobbying, political engagement side of things, there was a massive gap in our competencies that allowed the animal rights campaigners to spread this information that turned into crises that created work for these lobbying organizations to say, hang on a minute, that's bullshit. Yeah. So what we essentially do is a missing piece of the puzzle, which is to create content which advocates for responsible reptile keeping, that tells our side of the story to people who really aren't as invested as us, but need to know. Yeah. Now, what we also do, what we're also keen to make sure people know, is that we're not apologists for the bad side of the trade and the hobby. We know that exists.
Yeah.
It's something that we all need to be concerned with, because these animals into the wild, it comes back and bite you on the bum. If everybody feeds their animals so much that they become obese, and every animal, like dogs and cats and every other animal, if you're creating a sick animal because it's obese, then that's a problem. Maybe don't bloody do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe don't let your snake slither through its own crap and then smother it with kisses and catch salmonella.
Yeah.
Maybe don't do these things that the reptile industry in some parts is culpable of. So we're not apologists for the bad side of the hobby. We try to educate those parts of the hobby, bring them into the community and help them to, shit, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I see.
Mm.
That's what we're aiming to do. So that's the main focus of our work. But when we dealing with politicians, it's usually in government working groups, and in consultationary processes. Even better than that, sometimes it's in the pub after a meeting, and that's when business gets done. Sometimes that's rare, of course, but some politicians are happy to talk. Um, we were even called recently by the EU Commission, or at least an organisation working on behalf of the EU Commission, who wanted to interview us about illegal wildlife trade, which is an interesting topic that I'll cover for you in about 2 minutes if we can. Um, so the EU Commission currently has 3 work streams. One of them is deciding whether or not we want to introduce something like the Lacey Act into the EU. Complicated. I won't go into it now, but if it happens, it's a problem. The
Yeah.
second one is discussing whether or not we want a positive list in the EU, which is the basis for the survey we were talking about earlier that's coming to a close. That's a shit show, but we can talk about that in more detail another day. And the third one is helping to curtail the illegal wildlife trade. Now, this illegal wildlife trade is apparently, is it 22 or 26 billion pounds, fourth in line behind drugs, guns, and people smuggling. Sounds awful, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not so much if you look at it in detail, because most of that pie chart of 26 billion is trees and timber and plants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next, let's look at what's actual animals. Well, most of what's actual animals is dead stuff. It's skins, it's pelts, it's leathers, it's trophies, it's traditional medicine, bushmeat, derivatives, stuff that's already dead. So
Yeah.
now we're looking at a tiny, tiny slither of the wildlife trade in live animals, of which the vast, vast, vast majority of that Asia, not in the traditional markets that we work in, the Americas, the Europes, etc. Most of it's in Asia. It's an Asian problem. So we're left with this tiny, tiny, tiny number of live animals that are smuggled in the UK. But even if we scrutinize those numbers, most of those numbers are legal shipments of CITES protected animals where people have misrepresented the pay, tried to pull a fast one, captive bred animals that have never been in the wild anyway, have no, impact on the wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
people who fill in their paperwork wrong, who should know better or didn't know better and messed it up.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about when we're talking about actual bona fide smuggling from the wild? This thing that's blown up as a 26 billion-pound black industry that's such a problem that we need to ban reptile keeping. What are we talking about? Hardly anything in Europe. A friend of mine works in Germany doing essentially my job in Germany, and he bumped into a couple of undercover German wildlife officials in at the Ham Reptile Show, and he said, "Oh, guys, how's it going? Much happening?" And they're like, "No, Ham's a bit boring nowadays. Nothing happens." The only thing they're fine, they caught a couple of Spanish guys who bought, I don't even know what it was they bought in. I think it was some monitors illegally. And they tracked them all the way from the country of origin, all the way to Spain and all the way to Ham. And they picked them up at Ham because they knew they were going to be there. The trade in wild pet species that have been legitimately smuggled in the West is tiny, tiny, tiny. But it's weaponized and propagandized as this 26 billion pound industry that needs to be stopped. So
Yeah.
that's why they want to ban all your reptiles. So that's really what we're up to. And we spoke to the EU Commission about that when they interviewed us, and we gave them some advice. And the advice we gave them was a way could stop all reptile smuggling within 3 years. Do you want to know what they should do?
God.
So what you do is you take every animal that's ever been smuggled, or every animal that's even endangered. Yeah. And even the most endangered animal can probably withstand a small harvest of 6 or 10 animals from the wild. What you do is you bring those animals into captivity and you sell them at a greatly inflated price to a knowledgeable, experienced breeder who will then pay an arm and a leg for those animals, that money goes to conservation, pay an arm and a leg for those animals, and they breed them. And then when they breed them, they make the captive bred ones available. So what do
Yeah.
you want then? So you want an animal. Do you want a wild, risky, illegal, smuggled one, or do you want a captive bred one? You want
Yeah.
a captive bred one? No, the market for wild smuggled stuff dies within 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So the way to stop smuggling is to make them available in captivity so that captive bred ones become available. And you should also remember that no animal that has ever been captive bred has gone extinct.
Yeah.
There you go. Just solve the illegal wildlife trade for you.
Just like that. Just
I
like
mean,
that.
it's. I mean, we're flippant, but that's essentially true. There are
But
nuances,
yeah. But this is the
things to
thing. Like
consider.
it's.
Yeah.
But you've just explained that to me, who I don't consider myself to be the smartest person in the world, and I get it. It makes sense that I immediately go, so what's the problem? So I don't understand why we have to go to these highly educated, degree standard, all of these high up level people and say this to them, and they go, what? What? There must be times where you're there, just you feel like you're just pulling teeth and then ripping your own hair out. Surely,
Yeah, there are, and especially when you're refuting the bullshit that comes from animal rights campaigners.
yeah,
That's really frustrating for me. It sounds so obvious to me, and maybe I am naive. Maybe I'm maybe I'm but nobody's yet been able to convince me of the flaw in that argument. Nobody's yet been able to say, "Hang on a minute, you haven't thought of this, have you? You haven't taken this into consideration." Yes, there are some small nuances, but on the whole, this would work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have nothing to expand on that because is perfect. It is, yeah, yeah, incredible. Well, Emma, I hope that answered your question. That's
We went
incredible,
a long
Tony.
way
Thank you.
around it, but
Yeah,
I think we covered it pretty well.
no, that's
It reminds
amazing.
me of one of my favorite quotes, which is, and you've probably seen me looking down trying to find it on my phone, so here it is now. Um, Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it, whether it exists or not, diagnosing it incorrectly, and then applying the wrong remedies. Yeah. And
Yeah,
this is largely what we're fighting against.
yeah,
It's who knows about this topic better than us, the animal keepers, the professionals, the people who do it for a living?
Yeah.
People making the laws and the people fighting for those laws are largely either uninterested, uninformed. They rely on us to keep things on the straight and narrow. So that's essentially our job. And we do that in the media, and we also do it politically. And there's also one other avenue that I'll just brush over, which is research, scientific. Data is king, as we said in our survey. Um, the animal rights campaigners have spent a long time building up a shit ton of bogus scientific papers, and we don't have that. We're not that we want bogus scientific papers, but we've been busy at the sharp end with live animals learning our trade, so we
Yeah.
don't have the paperwork behind us. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another job for another set of people that we don't have time.
Yeah. Excellent. No, that's amazing stuff. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. So Paul said Lucky Riddler is a full-time editor. No comment. Kids are amazing. They are, but boy, oh boy, they are hard work. They are hard work, but yeah, amazing nonetheless. Ben, our first super chat of the night. Yo, 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 I have arrived. Riddler, any merch soon? You know for a fact there's merch coming, Ben, because I am using Where Species, who, has been opened up by the man himself. So, yes, new merch to come. Although, just a quick one, shout out, thank you for the Responsible Reptile Keeping and Riddler Reptiles t-shirt. I appreciate that. But yes, there is new merch coming, and it is all, if everyone wants to go onto Instagram and follow Where Species, or Where.species, I think it is, new merch incoming. Good stuff. I tell you what I'm going to do. Actually, you've just reminded me, by sending me a super chat, I'm going to do similar to what Paul did, or exactly what Paul did. For every super chat that's sent into this chat, every single penny of it that obviously YouTube and Apple don't take is going to go to Responsible Reptile Keeping. So if you're feeling generous and you want to contribute that little bit more, I'm not going to use it for my next set of UVB. I will send it directly to Tony and Vicky at Responsible Reptile Keeping. So, and like I say,
thank you.
I'm not stealing. I'm not saying that's my idea. I saw Paul do it, so I will do the same.
Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate that. I don't care what they say about you. You're all right.
It's funny actually, because there is a question coming up that sounds a little bit like that as well. I think I showed you, but
oh right, okay.
Yeah. Right, let's have a look. Beardies get black stomachs due to stress. Okay, so there you go. They can go full black, black rings, black stripes, all sorts cause black stomachs. Okay, all right, fair enough. What were they kept on heat-wise? I don't think it was a heat mat. I think it was overhead heat. So this is going back to Rebecca's beardie, because we've been going off for a little while. I don't think it was a heat mat because it doesn't feel like a burn. But yeah, if in doubt, go to the vet, said Ben. Paul said, take it to the vet. Agreed, vet. Yeah, cool. It seems internal, not a burn. The skin is normal. He was cold, low wattage heat bulb, no underheat was provided, thankfully, on a reptile carpet. Okay, cool. So they're just talking about the beardie. Keeping has come far. Breeding, however, has not. That's an interesting point.
Yes. I think Show Me Kitties and I have had this conversation in a discussion a while ago, and it's a really interesting one, and it's probably one we shouldn't get into other here all night.
It's an interesting point, a very interesting point.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Been keeping 29 years. Difference is huge between when I started and now. Yeah, definitely.
Isn't it just?
Been keeping for around 12 years myself. I remember seeing a Boscon beach chip with a ceramic heat emitter in the early 2000s. We leveled up. Yeah, absolutely.
But this is what makes me proud of what we do and who we are and of yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that attack us, and even people within the industry attack us. But personally, I am really, really proud of the reptile hobby, the reptile community, and especially of the reptile trade. I think we've done great things, and we should all be proud. We should celebrate what we've done.
Yeah.
You, it's worth remembering. It's worth remembering that none of these advancements in herpetology, whether it's been in husbandry, welfare, or even equipment, yeah, none of these advancements have been made by researchers or animal wealth rights campaigners or the government mandating stuff. It's not been done by zoos even. It's all been done by the private sector, by
Yeah.
passionate nerds and people who are willing to put their money where their mouth is, make products and sell them.
Yeah.
And I have got the utmost respect for the vast majority of keepers and stores and traders, and
Yeah.
and even and all breeders. There are bad apples in every part of life, and ours is
Yeah.
no
Of
exception.
course.
But on
Yeah.
the whole, I am ultimately proud of reptile keepers and reptile keeping.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I really do. I remember keeping a leopard gecko on Repti carpet with a red bulb. Cancel Repti chat. No, I was the same. I didn't have the reptile carpet, but I kept mine on bark. And literally, the first ever leopard gecko I had, he was on bark and he had a red light. And yeah, it just wasn't kept very well at all. But here we are. And then you see my latest leopard gecko enclosure. That's how far we. That's one of my examples. Let's have a look.
Yeah, so think about that. So that we all have to enter the hobby somewhere. We all entered the hobby maybe
Yeah,
at a different point in time or at a
yeah,
different stage in our development. And we as a community just watching this now are in the top, 1% of reptile keepers. And I don't and that's accurate. Yeah. Because if you honestly knew how many bearded dragons, leopard geckos, crested geckos are being bred for the pet trade, especially in America, yeah, and sold in the pet trade to new keepers, and how many animals were being kept, it would blow your mind. Yeah. So the vast majority of reptile keepers have got one beardy, one leopard gecko, one corn snake, or whatever. We never hear from them. They got their setup, and that's great. And that's as far as they ever go. And as far as I'm concerned, that's great. Yeah. As long as we can initiate them into the being into the community at a level that we can say is essential, that we can say is adequate, that we can say is good enough, I'm happy with it. Because if we always advocate for the ultimate of care, we cut off little Billy's ability to get his first leopard gecko. Now, when you got your first leopard gecko, we probably all thought that it lived on bark with a red lamp. That's what we probably all thought. In the
mm.
context of time, that was probably okay. I am not going to go to my first reptiles and explain how I kept them because I'm cringingly embarrassed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I look back on it with embarrassment, but I also look back on it in pride that all the people that we were working with at the time set the standards and laid the foundations for what we do today. Yeah.
yeah,
No, nobody starts out perfect, and we've all got better. Chaz at Snakes and Adders.
yeah,
He's got a great analogy, which is the reptile trade is like an oil tanker. It moves very, yeah. And what you've got at the front are a handful of people who act as tugboats, pulling that bloody oil tanker in the right direction, yeah, and making it move somewhere better. And you've also got some people at the back acting as anchors that are kind of holding us back, and they're probably never going to change. We're probably going to have to wait for them to die. But
yeah,
on the whole, that
yeah,
oil
yeah,
tank was doing bloody well. So
yeah.
so yeah, it's an important to remember how far we've come and how and who's done that. It's been the reptile private keepers that have done that.
Well, to be fair, one of my favourite ever sayings is, "If I've seen further, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants." That's literally where we
Yeah,
are in the reptile hobby. We're only where we are because
yeah.
of those that came before us. Now, even if they weren't caring for them properly, they had to make the mistakes. They had to do what they needed to do in order to get us to where we are today, to this level, to this standard.
Well,
So,
you've got to remember that when we started keeping, I put me in the group because all the people that I was hanging around with when I started keeping reptiles were the creme de la creme of reptile keeping across Britain and Europe and the world even. I got a job at what was at the time the largest reptile house in Europe. I was like 15 years old. So I was hanging around with the godfathers of reptile keeping, and that was just how you did things then. That was that was what we had. The shoulders of giants is exactly, and if you go back to those guys now and ask them about their, they'll be proud of a lot of what they did, and they'll say, "Yeah, I wish I'd have learnt that a bit earlier," or looking back, I could have done that differently. But that was where we started, and I'm proud to have been there.
Yeah, and also hindsight is 2020 as well. That's what it comes down to.
Into just yeah.
Yeah. Um, right. Well, so God, the argument 50% of reptiles dying in the first year drives me mad. Love the RRK vid dispelling that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually 75% of reptiles apparently die in the first year, which is absolute. I think I could say bullshit.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not just bullshit. If you look at it, it's bullshit. And we've also got two studies that prove it's bullshit. But
Yeah.
that statistic still gets bandied around the social media. Um, Even within our own community, people share it. It gets bandied around on mainstream media, and it even got mentioned at a European Parliament meeting I was at recently. So we produced that video, and now what happens is that our supporters, when they see that statistic online, they're like, "Nope, that's bullshit. Here's a video. Shut the hell up," which closes it down. We've also
Yeah.
had journalists get in touch with us and say, "Hey, I was going to write an article about this, but then I saw your video, and can we include you in our article?" So it the door for us to be involved in this discussion, whereas previously nobody was there, nobody was doing it, and the only information journalists and governments had was the stuff that the animal rights campaigners were broadcasting. So now
Yeah.
we're there correcting it. Now we're there telling our side of the story.
Incredible. Incredible. Love to see it. Well, ever since I said that every penny will be donated to you guys and the cause, let's go. Let's have a look. £5 from Repti Chat. Well, if it's going to RRK, I might as well. Thank you,
It's
Ben.
all right,
Appreciate
Eddie.
you.
Thank you, Ben.
Catty, Squid says support responsible reptile keeping. Thank you, Catty and
Thanks,
Squid.
Kathy.
Appreciate you both. Cat, we love RRK. Of course we do. We love them. We appreciate them.
Here, isn't
Thank
it?
you.
It's good here, isn't it?
$20. Look at that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
And like I say, apart from what YouTube and Apple take from us, all of it is going to Tony and Vicky at Responsible Reptile Keeping. Paul, follow RRK, help the hobby. Yes, like I say, even if you're not signed up already, if you're not, following everything, please do so because it's so important. Yes, we have spoken. $1.99 for the fun. Sorry, it's not more. Still broke. Don't, mate. Gary,
all
you have
counts.
nothing to
All
apologise
counts,
for.
mate.
Nothing to apologise for.
Actually, on that point, Andrew,
sorry, go on. Yeah.
this is something we ought to cover at the funding mechanism for RRK, because
Yeah.
what we've tried to do is as widely as we possibly can, so that there's not one big business that funds all of our work, because that would leave us either A, vulnerable to being at their beck and call, but also it would make us vulnerable if they, I don't know, went out of business, got cancelled, or fell out with us, or got a new director. So what we've tried to do is make it so that everybody who has a vested interest in reptile keeping, who would like somebody to take on the role of protecting responsible keepers and advocating for responsible keeping, everybody who has that intent or wish could help to fund us to whatever degree they are able, or to whatever degree they feel like they would like to get involved. And that way, the Zoom Eds, the Arcadias, the Exo, etc., they help out quite a lot, yeah. And then the other brands that support us help out in incremental amounts, and it comes right down to our monthly memberships and the donations we get, which are a couple of quid here and there. And I'll tell you what, they add up, and it's all important. But the better thing about it for our liking is that when people are able to give just a couple of quid or 10 or whatever it is, it just reassures us that we're doing the right thing, that we're that we're that the people that we're working on their behalf know that we're working for them, and that
Yeah.
they support what we're doing. That means a lot. We sit in our little office hoping we're doing the right stuff. Then someone comes along and drops a few quid into a chat like this, and we're like, we're doing
Yeah.
all right. You know,
Yeah.
we're thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
See, that's the thing, especially nowadays with the way the world is financially and things like that. It's very, it takes a lot for someone to part with their money when they know that they're not going to get
Everybody's
anything
that's it.
material in return. Like, how often do you just go out and go, I'm just going to throw a fiver here, do this, there, do. But when it comes to the point like this, where people are going, have this money in the economy and the way we are now, it can only be a good
It is
sign. And
humbling.
yeah, it's incredible. It really is.
It is humbling. And we are very, very appreciative. We,
Mm.
you know, when we go to bed in the evening, we're sad enough to keep looking at, you know, what's happening on social media with our accounts and stuff. And Vicky will go, say, have you seen this comment that we've got? And it it is humbling. And you know, we know we work hard. We know that, yeah.
Mm.
But it's not until we hear from people that appreciate and support what we do that we're like, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it
Yeah,
right. So thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. No, that's incredible, and keep up the good work because everyone appreciates it. Of course they do. Going to have to replay this one. Sorry, I missed it. That'd be silly. Not a problem.
Finished, yeah.
Yeah, right. We've only done 2 questions. I'm so proud of being part of the reptile community. Several species of reptiles have been brought back from the brink of extinction by private keepers. I'm pretty sure Cresties were one of them, weren't they? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, kinda. That depends on your perspective, but yeah, essentially, yes. So crested geckos were thought to be extinct in
Mm,
the wild. Nobody'd seen one for like 100 years since they were described. And then I think it was 1994, Philippe de Vogel and a handful of other American herpetologists went over to New Caledonia just after a storm, and they found a handful of these geckos that had been blown down from the trees where they live, and they brought them back to the UK, bred the shit out of them, and now they're the third most captive bred lizard on the planet.
wouldn't
So
surprise me. Yeah.
what we can be sure of now is that geckos will never go extinct. And yes, okay, so some of the geckos we've got here have got pink and blue spots and might not live in the wild. But these animals revert very quickly back to their wild state if they were needed to be reintroduced. But more importantly, what's actually happening is that if we produce lizards in captivity, if we have people producing pet animals to fulfill the demand for pet reptiles, then these animals don't get collected from the wild. And it used to be that we'd bring in hundreds of thousands of green iguanas or bosque monitors or little swifts for like 75 cents each that didn't do very well. So all of those animals aren't part of the pet trade anymore because I think it's 85% of the reptiles we keep in captivity now are from 6 species. And I'm going to give you a test. Can you name those 6 species that make up 85% of the reptile pet trade? And this is true of the UK, but we also think it's in America and Europe is pretty similar as well. Okay, go.
Well, so you're talking like royal python,
That's one.
corn snake,
2.
leopard gecko, crested gecko,
Yep. 4. 2 left. You'll get one, not the other.
uh, uh,
You've mentioned them already. There's like 20.
bearded dragon.
Yep. Yep. Last one.
Last one, hognose.
That's coming up the rear, 7th. Yeah.
Right.
But
Okay.
I'm going to put you out of your misery here because it's a bit of a trick question. It's actually Mediterranean tortoises like Horsfields
Oh, right. Okay.
and Hermans, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are them. And so 75% of the reptiles in the whole of the trade and the hobby are those 7 species. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we've got those really good pet species being bred in numbers, yeah, the ones that we were taking from the wild in my embarrassing 1980s and 1990s don't get brought in anymore. We don't go round the reptile house picking out, you know, dead swifts first thing in the morning because they didn't live. This comes on to part of the conversation I was having with Shobi Kitties about the oversupply of reptiles in the hobby, and which is something we should all be aware of and keep our eye on. But what I think we need to be considerate of is that the supply and demand goes in ebbs and flows. Yeah. So like we saw with Mexican Black Kings, which when I was breeding them were like 20 quid in the 1980s and 90s. Yeah. Then they disappeared for a while, came back and they were 100 quid. So then everybody starts breeding them and then nobody wants them. And here we are where they're worth, less again. So
Yeah.
the demand produces a supply, the demand drops, and then there's too many. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we can say this about ball pythons to a degree. We can probably say it about retics to a degree, but it all depends on the ebb and flow of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Um, do you remember when there was that incubate only two project for beardies? Word went round in the hobby that all the reptile centres were full of bearded dragons. That everybody should stop breeding them, and if you do breed them, just incubate two, put the rest in the fridge. Yeah. Um, what happened was at the time, the two big wholesale companies had to bring in shed loads of bearded dragons from America because nobody was breeding bearded dragons. There was a supply and demand issue. So that's something that we have to be aware of. I mean, there was a lot more nuance to that story, but that's something that we have to be aware of.
Yeah.
Do you know the animal that's really difficult? In the UK specifically, this is, I have to say to all my American colleagues that this is not the case. But if you look at the reptile rehoming and rescue centres in the UK, all of those top 6 animals and probably the top 7, they come in large numbers because there's loads of them. But they also go out in large numbers because there's lots of demand for them. Do you know the animal that doesn't go out, that comes in, then sits around for 2 and 3 years in the UK rescue centres?
No.
Normal bog standard boa constrictors.
Oh, really?
Rescue centres in the UK are full of them. And it's just not the case in the USA. In the USA, there's a massive market for boa constrictors that's unsatisfied. Yeah, breed
Yeah.
until the cows come home. But in the UK, I think it's because they take up more space largely. Yeah, lovely animals, great pets. One of my first boas, I had him. He was called Hugs, and he was fantastic. He's been a celebrity. That boa was. I used to have contract working with a photographer who used to use boa constrictors. He Hugs my boa constrictor in photo shoots with naked models. It was one of my favourite projects ever. It was fabulous. I just used to go, Hugs loved it. He just to hang around like, it's cool. Look at me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they come in numbers and they don't go into especially adults. And we're talking about normals here. And, anything that's locality or morph is usually in demand, but normal ones don't. So yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't
Okay.
remember what
Interesting
question it
insight.
was. I just answered, but there you go.
Yeah. Me neither anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
Riddler is in the bottom 1%. Always a pleasure having you on board, Paul. Thank you. uh, Oh my god, I love snakes and adders. Yeah, absolute geezer. To be
Great, isn't
fair,
it?
um,
The thing about snakes and adders is that his commercial focus is largely his hobby focus, which is cool snakes. Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's most of what he does. Yeah, he sells all the dry goods that you need. Yeah, he'll set you up with his equipment. But if you want to see some awesome, awesome animals, that's where you go. Snakes and
yeah,
adders in Sheffield.
yeah. I'd love to make the journey at one point. I think that'd be great. Yeah,
And if you want to see somebody who deals with customers, especially children, really, really well, brought me to tears watching this guy enthuse this kid about reptile keeping. He got this kid, sold him his reptile, and he's like, right, who's going to look after this snake? And the kid was like, he's like, you are. You're going to sign a contract. Here's your contract. You sign it. You are the keeper of this animal now. And here's your log sheet. I want you to log every time it feeds, every time it sheds, every time it poos. And then I want you to come back in a couple of weeks' time and we'll have a look at it and we'll go over it, see what we can do. These kids come back in with their log sheet of what they've been doing. Hey, Chaz, this is what I've done, and what should we do next? And They love it. They love it. It's
Yeah.
so, so good at it. Brought me to tears, honestly.
Yeah, that's incredible, mate. I think I saw him post that recently, actually, about the little like the
Mm.
contract and coming back in. I think that's amazing, because at the same time, it puts a level of accountability as well. That's the thing, and it's
Yeah.
teaching kids from a young age. It's like, because you could go, well, why do we give kids pocket money? It's to teach them from early doors that you've got to be accountable for what you receive, and obviously if you do this, you'll get rewarded, and if you get that, and blah blah blah. So why can't we do the same with animal keeping? You can't just go, here's your snake. When you
Well,
get bored of it, we'll get rid of it.
you've hit a very topical point that I was talking to Chaz, believe it or not, about exactly today. So in Japan, there's a popular culture, whereas Japanese children, when they hit 10, 11, 12, they're given a beetle larvae to care for and all of the equipment to care for it. And it's their job to learn how to be responsible for this animal, to nurture this animal, care for it, and show their growing levels of responsibility. And then when that larvae turns into a beetle, when it metamorphoses into a beetle, there's this big celebration as a coming of age of you've done really well. Well done. You've shown how responsible you are as a growing young person, as a young adult. And then they're subjected to the of losing that animal, to that animal dying, the animal that they've cared for. And it teaches them about the heartache and how to handle the heartache of loss. Yeah. But
Yeah,
the interesting thing about it from a commercial perspective and from a cultural perspective is that this is such a popular cultural phenomenon that all the kit and equipment for these beetles and the larvae is available in like their equivalent of Tesco. You go into the supermarket and there's all the equipment you need for your beetle larvae. Yeah. So if we could engender that same kind of sense of responsibility and that same kind of introduction into animal care and responsibility that they have in Japan, I think it'd be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. It, it's funny because I think most of us in the chat and in the hobby now, things like that have got kids. Our kids aren't going to be growing up without pets, and at the same time, they're also going to be taught how to responsibly care for these things. Like, we're not obviously. I'm not going to open Ragnar and Dagger's enclosure and go on then, son, feed the roughnecks. It's not going to work like that. But at the same time, he's going to grow up knowing and appreciating these animals. When he's a little bit older, maybe I'll get him to spray a couple of them down with a water bottle. Maybe I'll get him to tongue feed when he's a little bit older still. But it's just growing
Incremental.
and developing and
Yeah.
just helping the next
Yeah.
generation understand. Like, already, like, his favorite animal until she recently passed away, unfortunately, was the jumping spider. He loved the jumping spider. All of these animals in this room, giant monitor lizards, little ones, you got snakes, he loved the jumping spider. But because of that, my missus came out of the bathroom once and went, I'm not going back in there. There's a giant spider in the bath. Get rid of it. Right. So I went up, caught it in a glass, obviously, a little cup underneath. And it was a big spider, big house spider. And my son is just there going, he's just looking at it, fascinated, like touching the glass, not scared, nothing at all. And when I said, we've got to put this one outside, son, obviously it lives outside, it can't live in here. His first question to me was, should we get another one? And I was like, actually, this kid, like, he's
Yes.
not going to grow up scared of spiders and killing them and getting rid, like, he's just, and I think it's incredible. I really do. And I think it's such a valuable lesson to teach our kids, without a doubt.
Well, we lost the old school activity of having like class pets a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's it's a real shame because it was just the campaigning groups that, you know, filled everybody's head with misinformation and said that it was a big problem. But I don't know if they had class pets when you were a kid, but we did it. It was an absolute honor to get sent home with it. You were you know, you were cock of the north if you got given the responsibility of being sent home with the class pet to look after. And
yeah,
it taught people responsibility. It allowed us to become enamored and amazed with the natural world, and that's vital. But
yeah.
we could go about this, but we have to start them young, mate. We have to start them young.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, because that's not, this is not how I started. I wasn't started by my parents getting me a lizard or showing me snakes and things like that.
No,
I
it
was
was
a
a
weird kid, who enjoyed going to the reptile shop while the parents were in the the garden centre. I wanted to go and look at the lizards. and they'd look at me like, well, why? I went, oh, well, here we are.
Well, I had none of that. I mean, I was interested in animals when I was a kid. I used to breed Bengalese finches and zebra finches as an 8-year-old. And, even when I was younger, I used to collect bugs in a jar like most kids do, except I
Yeah.
used to collect so many that you couldn't get the lid on, which is probably a bit shitty now, but there you go. I'd always been interested in animals, but by the time
Yeah.
I was, 15, I was hanging around with nightclub bouncers and Hell's Angels and all these guys. And one of the bands that I was working with uh, came to came to a club where I was working in the Midlands, and he said, "Do you know a place called Walsall?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Take me there." So we got in his car and we went to Walsall. It turned out to be this big reptile house, and it was massive. Like I started working there, which is the punchline. But we had like thousands and thousands of animals at any one time and hundreds of species. Yeah. And I walked in, I was in bewildered joy. And to cut a very long story short, I pestered the owner of this bloody reptile house to tell me everything about reptiles in all the time I was there.
Yeah.
And then there was a note on the door saying help wanted. So I said, "Gives a job." And he said, "Start on Monday." So I got my first job working with reptiles, biggest reptile house in Europe. I was chief
Excellent.
for like a year. But while I was there, I met everybody who was anybody in reptile keeping back in the day. And I'm I'm probably too old to, mind you, a couple of the listeners have been doing it for a while. So the people I was hanging around with were the John Coots, Luke Yeomans, um, John Foden, Mark O'Shea, Nick Lum, Ray Hine, Jim Peffer, probably forgotten dozens and dozens of them. Nigel from Dudley, um, everybody who was anybody. I met Gary Bagnall from ZooMed there. Um, you know, Peter Hock from Hock Reptiles, that's now Lucky Reptile in Germany. As a 15-year-old, I got to sit at a table with all these top gods of reptile keeping, and
Yeah.
that was my job. I was a reptile professional sidekick for 20 years. It was my job, hanging around with these guys, helping them with their product projects. That's what I did.
Amazing. Amazing. What an origin story. Love to hear it.
Oh yeah, and it got me in everywhere. I worked in retail, wholesale, live food breeding, big venomous collections, big python breeding collections, zoos. I went on expeditions. Um, it's it's been pretty cool. I have to say, I've been that I had access to those people because I have neither the knowledge nor the credentials to get access to any of these places that I've been. I just knew a man who knew a man.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
that was my only that was my only benefit. Some of the
Yeah.
places I've been, I definitely do not have the credentials to have set foot in those environments.
Yeah.
And I got there because I was hanging on the coattails of the giants who went before me.
Yeah, but it just goes to show that there are opportunities in the hobby as well. Like it really is. It because, like you say, the second you start getting into nature and animals and things like that, like the world of opportunities is it really is there. Like you just if you grab it with both hands and don't let go, like you really can go far and you can see the world and you can see species. You can see, you've got to work for it, but it's a big world. It's a big world, and it could literally just start with your first corn snake.
It did, and I was quite lucky in that I didn't give a damn about anything else. I just did this. So the fact that I wasn't earning money, the fact that I could just up sticks and go and work at a zoo in Gran Canaria and Lanzarote, you know, do you want to go to Madagascar for 3 weeks? Yeah, I'll go. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
I, I made sacrifices because I didn't have a house, didn't have a mortgage, didn't have a proper job, didn't have a wife, didn't have a kid, just did what I liked,
yeah,
and it allowed me the opportunity to do that. But there are sacrifices to be made if you want to do that. You sacrifice your stability. But
yeah,
I look back and I'm not sorry.
yeah. Of course, of course. No, that's great. Right, I have to go back to doing the shit I was doing. Stay safe.
No,
P.S. Tony
Yes.
looking sexy as ever, but I won't see your reply
Oh,
as Riddle is slow. And that was
fair
21
enough.
minutes ago. Sorry, Paul. Oh, let's have a look. Let's carry on. Vicky and Tony are legends. Done so much in a short span of time. Always fighting our corner. Love that.
Oh man, that's the interesting
Yeah,
thing for us is that we've been doing this almost. I think it was 2 years since we started the company officially, and we're bewildered by what we've achieved in that time. Um, and it's only possible because we were able to dedicate our full lives to it. We
yeah,
tried to bolt our expertise onto the side of Repta and do it as volunteers or part time, and you can't do it. You can't
mm,
because while you're doing this work, you're not living, and while you're earning a living, you're not doing the work.
yeah,
So we basically reduced our media museum work and increased responsible reptile keeping over the course of about 6 months, and that was it. But
yeah,
you have to do it full time, and you have to do it, 12 hours a day, else
yeah,
you can't do it.
yeah. My parents ran a rescue and rescued hundreds of beardies, bosks, boas, and leopard geckos. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd have a boa one day.
mate, they're great. Boas are great.
Yeah,
One of my favourite animals to keep. Boas are great.
yeah. Okay, this makes sense. So Wayne said that, and then Catty said, "Is that Barry's dad, Wayne?" Now, part of me was thinking, "Have I missed something?" But then it
Yes,
occurred
it
to
is
me, I
Barry's dad,
know
Wayne.
it is
Yes,
Barry's
it
dad.
is.
Wayne. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There you go.
yeah.
Look, Hi, Catty. It is the penny dropped initially. I went, "Yes, of course." I love Barry so much. I show him
Now,
to my best friend all the time whenever you post it. Love that.
here's something about Wayne that's absolutely phenomenal. In my time in reptiles, I've realised that some people have got it, and some of us haven't. Now, I haven't got it. I know I haven't got it, right? I know how to look after reptiles, or at least I did when I was doing it. I know a bit about reptiles, but some people have just got this very magical affinity with their animals. And Wayne's got it with all of his animals. I have never seen anybody with soft shell turtles and Hydrosaurus sailfin lizards. And these animals aren't supposed to be interactive or friendly or want
Yeah,
to, hang out with their keepers. They want to bite and scratch. But Wayne's just sit on him and love him and want to be with him all the time. It's unbelievable. It's magical.
it is.
So
It is
how
magical.
anybody
Is
can say
such a
that
good way of
reptiles aren't
describing it.
affectionate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How anybody can say that reptiles aren't affectionate has
No,
never seen Wayne and Barry?
I agree. I agree entirely. Like it's just, and like you say, magical is literally the word for it. It's just absolutely incredible. Every time Wayne's videos pop up, I get excited. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, yes, let's see what they're up to today.
And what you can't tell from Wayne's videos is that he's an enormous bodybuilder, right? He's
Yeah,
actually jacked as Jack can be. The camera angle doesn't do him any favors at all, and that's not a worry because that's not what he's there for. But when you meet him
yeah,
in real life, you're like, oh shit, man,
yeah.
he's a
I think I might
unit.
have. I think I might have just missed him at that IHS when we did that little interview because he did the same
Yeah,
interview, didn't he? I think
yeah,
I just missed him, but I
that's
would.
right.
Wayne, it'd be nice to meet you at some point, my friend, for sure. Um, Ben has said, if anyone wants to give me a beetle larvae, I would be very appreciative.
We'll bring you up right, Ben. We'll bring you up right.
That's it, yeah. Beetle keeping in Japan, Taiwan, China, etc. is so much more advanced than the UK. I get so jealous of what they have available for beetle keeping in their supermarkets. It's crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
I forgot you'd know the deep end of this, mate. It's yeah, I find it fascinating as well.
Yeah,
But I wonder why it hasn't caught on here or what we could do to make it happen. But saying that, it does appear to me that those weirdos who like invertebrates and isopods and spiders, they're becoming really popular, I mean, I don't get it. They're weird. What is it
yeah,
about those bugs that's worth having? But it's catching on. I went to Martin Hull's place, the pet factory in Germany, and we walked into a very small, like a large walk-in wardrobe or a large bathroom cubicle. And I said, "What's in here?" And he said something like 250,000 euros worth of cockroaches. It was separate, and it's becoming a big thing now. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people looking at this, and quite rightly so. It does look really interesting. They might be weird, those guys, but it is cool.
To be honest, I have noticed. Again, I don't know if it's just because I'm getting more into the hobby as every day goes past, or whether I'm just maybe being more observant. But I am seeing a lot more with inverts. I'm seeing a lot more people
You're
getting into
absolutely
their
right.
inverts, which is not.
You're
I don't.
absolutely right.
I wonder whether some of it comes down to because they are. I don't want to sound like I'm being blasé here, but a lot of them are easier to look after than, say, an entire bearded dragon setup. Of course, it is. Like technically speaking, a beetle to look after is easier than a bearded dragon in most instances. So I don't know if maybe people are like, well, I know I can't keep a bearded dragon. I don't have the time, money, effort, resources. But that beetle is really cool. I'm going to get that. I can keep it in a big box with mud and a lovely, great stuff. Excellent. Because a beardy doesn't suffer and you've got an animal that you love and appreciate and you start somewhere.
Exactly this. Exactly this. This is what responsible keeping is all about. And this is why bans and positive lists don't work.
Yeah.
Because if you ban a whole swathe of animals from being available to people, you're probably banning the perfect pet for somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we should choose the animal that's exactly right for us. Like you see here, we live on a boat. I've been on this boat for 20 years. There is no real way that we could keep reptiles on this boat. So I haven't kept reptiles of my own for 20 years. I go and enjoy other people's reptiles. This is the responsible thing to do because keeping them here would be a very bad idea. If I haven't got room all the time for a pet animal like a beardie or a dog, but I quite fancy a beetle because they're pretty cool. Damn right. And this I think is why reptiles became popular because they can be relatively small in relatively small enclosures compared to what a dog or a cat would need space
Yeah.
wise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
relatively easy to keep. The popular species are relatively easy to keep compared with the dog or a cat. There's a government report somewhere from a few years ago that stated exactly that. And then if you work out the needs of an invertebrate, then that's entirely suitable for people who are really busy, money rich, but time poor
Yeah.
is modern lifestyles in a nutshell, isn't it? Like we were discussing earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you want an animal to keep that ain't going to take up too much time and space and effort, and a bug blows your skirt up, go for that bug. Fully with you.
100%. 100%.
But do you know the animal
Jumping
rights
spiders.
campaigners are campaigning against bugs now as well?
But what's their argument with that? Why are they saying that that's.
That they're sentient beings that require their welfare to be enhanced, which invertebrates don't have any animal welfare laws, no laws pertaining to animal welfare. And the reason for that is as soon as you start bringing in laws for invertebrates, you end up not being able to swat a fly, not being able to spray your crops, not being able to kill a mosquito.
Yeah.
Now, I understand when you come to cephalopods and squids and octopus and cuttlefish, yeah, they're sentient beings and they require some welfare considerations. I think what the aim is to try and close down the protein breeding farms, um, which is ridiculous because I thought bug protein was supposed to be the replacement for animal protein. But then
Well,
what
yeah.
do I know?
Apparently, it's higher in protein per kilo than like a steak or
Yeah,
something. Allegedly,
you're tasting it though.
I haven't, and I don't plan on doing so anytime soon.
Do. But this is the animal rights campaigners will invariably eat themselves, very much like they're doing to the RSPCA. The RSPCA, one of the biggest animal rights campaigning organizations in the world, is being slaughtered by the far end of animal rights campaigners who say that their farm assurance projects aren't good enough. They
Yeah.
eat themselves because they become so virtuous that you can't be virtuous enough. There will always be somebody with I am holier than thou.
Yeah.
That's why they eat themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did a little rant then.
No, you're all right. You're all right. Ben said, I can hardly hatch fruit beetles. Ben, I'm sorry to be that guy, but I've hatched them. I've hatched them accidentally. By the Cresty has missed a couple, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, I go, "The hell is that in his enclosure?" Oh, it's a fruit beetle. So, yeah, if you want to know my tricks, mate, there are no tricks. My 8-year-old loves the spiders now. Still terrified of garden worms. Honestly, it's so funny what kids can be scared of and really like. In actual fact, that brings up another story. I tell you what, this has been the least questions asked on a Q&A I've ever seen, but it does bring up a good
Right.
point. So, but I'm really enjoying it. The stories and things like that are incredible. But and that just reminds me, there was one of my missus' friends came round, and she's got a daughter who's 7, 8 years old. Animal lover, loves them, and she knows that Andrew has got reptiles. Mum, can I come with you? Is Andrew going to be there? Can he show me the reptiles? Of course I can, right? She wanted to see the snakes. I showed her the juvenile one I've got. She held it, fine, lovely. She said, "Have you got, what's the biggest snake you've got?" I said, "Probably the female. She's about 5 foot long. She's quite thick." She said, "Can I
Female
hold that
what?
one?" Royal python. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, of course you can." I said, "As long as you're happy, because she's quite big." Yeah. She literally held out hands. Yeah, give me the snake. Give me the snake. Yeah. Went and sat with her on the sofa. This snake is climbing over her. She's loving it. This kid, "Mum, get pictures of me." Blah blah blah. Fine, cool. Took her back. Right. I said, "Right, should we go and feed the Ackies?" She said, "What do they eat?" I said, "They just eat locust." Oh, they're this big. They're this big. And she's just been holding a 5 foot royal python. And I said, "Well, I'll feed them. You can just watch." I opened the glass. I threw one in there. And sometimes, every now and again, the locust will decide, "I don't want to be eaten," and jump back again. And this little girl, bless her, just went, "Oh my God, little locust." And I just found it so funny. I was like, I said, "Oh, I'll grab it." I didn't chase her with it or anything like my dad used to do to me or like my sister with spiders. And I just threw it back in.
Mm.
But the fact that she was enamored with this 5 foot royal python, this thick, heavy, muscle bodied animal, "Mum, take pictures. I want to hold her and love her." And yet was jumping away from a locust. It's so
Yeah.
funny. It's so funny.
But then you probably did a really good job of alleviating her stress and worry, and maybe she'll react slightly differently next time. So fair play to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because like I say, I mean, I saw what not to do because my dad knew that my sisters, especially, were scared of spiders. And his idea of a laugh was to either pretend he had a spider and go, "Oh," like that, or actually show them a spider. Because they eventually, when I got old enough, they'd come to me to get rid of the spiders because they knew I wouldn't throw it at them or chase them because my dad found himself hilarious. It's just
I
what
have
he
to
did.
say that when I was younger, I had a friend who was absolutely terrified of spiders.
Yeah,
Terrified, terrified. And I was like, "Look, I can help you with this. Yeah, we do this every day at work." So I got a spider skin, which of course looks just like a spider, but
yeah,
has no spider in it. So I said to him, "This is just a skin. There is no spider here. This is
yeah,
just a skin. It cannot hurt you. So I will hold it here while you look at it." And I
yeah.
waited till he came really close, and then I went,
Oh, Tony, that's
"Oh no."
brutal. That is, it's
Oh well, he did.
funny, but
If you knew my friend, you'd know he deserved it. You'd
yeah,
know he
yeah, yeah,
deserved
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
I probably wouldn't do that today. But it was funny. I think a little bit of we came out.
yeah. Probably, probably. Um, my son isn't into keeping reptiles, but he loves, protects, and respects them. He's a cat person. But there you go. Oh,
Fair
actually, I
play.
nearly let something. But obviously, we were chatting about something similar before, all to be revealed in the future, my friends. But yeah, my secondary
Yeah.
school had giant African land snails, which made me love them. And Catty, your care for giant African land snails is better than the way I see some people keeping their cats and dogs. So you're an absolute
Well,
inspiration.
we used to keep those at my old reptile house, and we used to race them. We used to put them on a thing and race them, and we used to do all kinds of stuff to try and make them go faster. And
Yeah.
one of the things I tried with mine was to take its shell off, but just made it sluggish.
Oh, oh, I wondered where
So
you were
now
going with
you
that.
know So now you know why Vicky loves me. I know she's out of my league, but she loves me because I'm funny.
It's the
That's why
sense of
she loves
humour.
me.
That's got to be it. Surely it has to be.
You can't
Uh,
hear what she's saying in the background here, but yeah.
Oh, there you go. To be fair, Ben has also been getting help with hatching the Patchnoda grubs. For beetle larvae, the substrate is key. Well, I don't know what I've done, but I've apparently done it right because I've hatched like 4 now. So,
Yeah.
once had a giant African land snail named Sid. That's one pet I didn't let sit on my head.
Um, Probably best, mate.
Yeah, yeah. When I was a teenager, my dad would take me to a reptile shop almost every day to see the animals and see the snakes, lizards. Yeah, I mean, like I say, mine weren't into it. So if there was one nearby, they'd let me loose in there. You've got 10 minutes while we go and do this. We'll come back for you. All right, so yeah,
It's cool
um,
that days, Cassie.
yeah. Let's have a look. What's everyone saying? Oh, blimey, chat's been going off. Pulls back again. Not sure what's being said, but ears are burning.
Not your ears that could be burning.
I'm very proud to see Squid grow with you. Hopefully, meet up in the next show. Yes, I think they announced that it's in June, the next IHS, so that'd be really cool. Really, really cool. I'd be up there. I don't think
Yeah,
they've
I think we'll
revealed,
be
they've said
there.
where it's going to be, but yeah, I think they've not said where it's going to be. Okay, fingers crossed. Magna's good, but I wouldn't mind somewhere a little bit closer to me if that's being selfish.
Blooming Southerners. It's
Yeah.
always the same.
This is the thing. Any further south, and I'll be in the sea. So I'm
You're like a
definitely a
weirdo,
weirdo.
mate.
Definitely a weirdo with flat full of inverts. Yeah, you're a man who
Right.
likes his inverts, Phil. I'm working on the invert room as we speak. I've reached capacity in the living room. Yeah, see, that's another thing I was told. I'm not allowed any inverts anywhere outside of the reptile room. Anywhere, they're not allowed. Like, because we've got the beardies and the blue tongue skink in the living room. Fine, that's cool. But she said, no spiders, no stick insects
That's
in the living room.
an interesting point about that. That's part of the evolution of the reptile trade. So back when I started keeping, it was only blokes that kept reptiles.
Yeah,
They had so few female keepers, it was unbelievable. If a female keeper turned up at a society meeting or a reptile show or at a shop, we were like, "Ooh, it's an actual woman that likes what I do. Absolute goddess, please be my wife." That's how rare it was.
yeah,
And that all changed when Exoterra bought out their beautiful black and glass enclosures, because then instead of reptiles being kept in these wooden boxes in a back bedroom somewhere, they were deemed to be aesthetically pleasing enough to be brought into the living room. And a broad brushstroke kind of stereotypical comment to make, but it was usually the wife that decided what was worthy of being in the living room as a
yeah,
an eye candy, very much like a fish tank. So when reptiles moved into the living room and became something that more women seemed to get involved with, that's when we had an influx of women into the trade and hobby. Now, this is only a correlatory observation. Cannot back it up with science, and I'm sure some people would argue against me. But the nurturing inclination of many women seemed to bring reptile welfare on in leaps and bounds when that
yeah,
happened. I speculate, and it's such a broad brushstroke, stereotypical way of viewing it, and I know that there are vast differences to be had. But it seems to be something that happened when more women got involved with the reptile hobby and the trade.
yeah. I, it's very, very difficult to argue that. It's very difficult because, again, obviously, we don't want to tar everyone with the same brush. But at the same time,
Exactly.
when you look at majorities, the majority of the female keepers that we see keep a couple of species that they know, that they love, that they give everything they could possibly offer to that species before they potentially get another one. Whereas us being men, boys, whatever you want to say, we like the
We
next
want
cool
things.
thing. We like things.
We
We
want
like going,
things.
that's cool. I want one of them. Nice one. That's cool as well. Actually, I would like one. That actually, I'm going to get one of them. And then this is the thing that I had. The problem is I got too many too soon. It got to the point where I was like, right, their care isn't good enough. I need to upgrade everyone. And I was like, but with what money? Just one UV unit is 50, 60, 70 quid. I haven't got that money. You know what I mean? For all of these animals. So you end up having to catch up on yourself. And I'm very guilty of it. And I do think, as much as, like you say, we're broad stroking, I think there is definitely truth in there.
It's a trend rather than a rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
And a great trend as well.
What's that? Sorry.
It was a great trend to observe happening as well.
Yeah. Yukibu, getting out and in the hobby after 20 years, I see so much improvement and been enjoying the animals so much more. It's incredible. Yeah.
I hear you, mate.
Yeah.
I'm with you, brother.
Yeah. There we go, about inverts. They're cheaper and no surprise vet bills. Love that.
Cool.
Yep, seen well-known groups trying to say invertebrates are far too difficult to keep and breed in captivity.
Oh,
yeah.
Honestly, mate, we're dealing with some raving lunatics.
Yeah. Eat meat, not bugs. That's words I can live by, to be fair, definitely.
Right.
I've accidentally hatched cresties. That's funny. I'm assuming they
Even better.
laid somewhere and you found little babies one day. Love that. Okay, all right, here we go. We've got another question. I haven't even caught up fully yet. Thoughts on the ITV anti-reptile documentary from last year?
Is that the one where the girl who got a YouTube channel was recorded?
I'm not sure, because it was very much about TikTok keepers and things like that. Because I know that
Yeah, I think it was the
Tori's
same.
Exotics, yeah, she did a
That's right.
piece for it. And she
That's
even
right.
said, she came out after and she said, I told them everything they asked. They asked me about care, the husbandry, the this, the that. And yet when it came to the editing, they barely used it. She felt like she was hard done by and just lied to about what they were planning on doing.
This is the thing that, I mean, thankfully, mainstream media's is in a flat spin death spiral. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody really engages with mainstream media properly about any particular topic anymore, because
Yeah.
mainstream media can't deliver the information that we need. They can only deliver sensationalism. And the reason for this is mainstream media relies upon getting as many eyes as they can on the screen so that they can sell advertising. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they do whatever they need to do to get eyes on the screen. And that is largely going to be sensationalizing a topic to get people to watch it. I mean, the
Yeah.
Tiger King and this video specifically. So reptile keepers, if anybody comes to you and says, would you like to TV show, my initial reaction is always going to be extremely skeptical. Yeah. Extremely skeptical. You can get in touch with us or one of the other advocacy organizations who will probably be able to tell you whether this production company is worth speaking to or not.
Yeah.
We've generally got contacts to the parts of the media where they treat us with at least a balanced perspective. Like the old Inside Out programs were pretty balanced in their delivery.
Yeah.
But they do it regularly, and the problem is that, so there was I think it was on This Morning or Good Morning. We haven't got TV, but they wanted some reptiles on the Good Morning TV show. I can't remember who was on there. Anyway, these production companies have got our phone number. They've got the phone number of plenty of responsible, considered, well-informed people who give them the right side of the story. But they didn't call any of us. Who did they
Yeah.
call? The bloody gum trees that they got on there looking like freaky weirdos, giving them exactly what they wanted, which was a freak show. That's what
Yeah.
they did. And this isn't Tory, by the way. This was a different program.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they wanted a freak show, so they booked a freak show, and that's what they
Yeah.
got, and that's what they wanted to show. And now, thankfully, most people don't watch mainstream TV anymore.
Yeah.
The people who saw it are probably extremely irrelevant, and will probably get away with it. Doesn't help. It doesn't help. But as a media organisation, we don't focus our efforts on mainstream media because we consider it dead in the water on the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. There you go. A lot of people are it's resonating with them about the fear of like the locusts and stuff like that. My son is the same. Will hold mate's retic, but runs from earthworms. The Pac-Man frog. Locusts are disgusting. I'm a grown woman and they scare me. My daughter's got 3 leopard geckos and 5 frogs, but won't feed locusts as they scare her. It's crazy, isn't it? It's so funny. To be fair, locusts used to freak me out. Now I'm desensitized. Love it. I had a little girl come to my work and said because of me, she now has a tarantula and loves learning about them and teaching her friends. Definitely a proud moment. But this is one of the things we were discussing beforehand. It was reaching that next generation because a lot of the old guard will die how they are acting now, how they feel now, and whether that's those that are keeping reptiles improperly and whether that's those that hate reptiles and don't think they should be kept as pets. They're done. We're not going to reach them. It's the next generation, the ones that will grow up and go, well, no, hang on a second, that's not right. These are creatures that deserve our love, our time, our patience, our care. So, no, that's incredible, Phil. I love that. That's great to see.
They have access to the internet, and
Yeah,
it's a blessing and a curse because they can get introduced to the internet and reptile keeping via less salubrious channels, and hopefully they'll start there, but then kind of evolve into better keepers by getting involved in the community.
yeah,
Or they'll come and see your podcast or your channel, or any one of the great ones out there, and get started on the right foot from the start. But we certainly have the capacity to embrace a generation of kids who don't yet know how enjoyable it can be, but we need to get to them before the raging animal rights people who just want to cut off humankind from all types of animal interactions.
yeah,
And this is the ultimate goal of animal rights campaigners. They want to stop all interaction with animals, whether
yeah.
that be eating meat, fishing, hunting, having a guide dog, keeping pets.
Hmm.
Um, no, no animal interactions are acceptable
Yeah,
to these extremists. PETA said that the sooner we can dispense with this idea of pet keeping, the better, which is blows my mind.
yeah,
And the other phrase they have is better dead than bred,
yeah,
which sickens me to the stomach.
yeah.
So the sooner we can convince our youth that we're on the right side of history and these people are absolute lunatic extremists, which is what they are and
They
what they're
are.
largely being recognized as, the better.
Yeah. Well, it still annoys me now when I see like shampoos and things like that that says Peter approved. It makes me want to buy it less. I'm like, I don't care
Oh
what Peter
man,
approved. I really don't care
same
what
here.
they think. I see it and I go, if you knew what they were actually like, you wouldn't be putting their name on your shampoos because they're just yeah, it does annoy me still.
Believe it or not, amongst amongst animal rights campaigning groups, there is this urban myth that says that PETA are actually um, endorsed by the meat and animal keeping industry because they claims that they make and the media that they make is so extreme it ridicules the whole of the animal rights campaign. PETA is so extreme that it ridicules the animal rights campaign. So
Yeah.
surely they must be, from animal keepers. It's crazy.
My bedroom is mostly Vivs. The Habistat ones are very pretty, to be fair. Yeah. Okay. So that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's yeah.
I should add in that the industry has come on leaps and bounds in producing beautiful enclosures. There's all of the big brands and some of the small some lovely, lovely enclosures now that would grace any front room. We don't have to hide away in bedrooms anymore. I was at the Tinley show with Jamie from Monkfield Habitat bringing on all the new Vivs, and I was like, "Whoa, they're
Mm,
nice."
yeah.
There was like this metallic blue one that I nearly took home with me before I remembered I lived on a boat.
It's it is getting to the point now where you know, because like I say, with a fish tank, it's, you know, it's your glass box, and then whatever you put in it can be your centerpiece, your masterpiece, and that's where you put your plants, your
Yeah.
beautiful fish. But I think, like you say, it's getting to the point now where the reptile enclosures are getting the same, because it's not even just the enclosures; it's what we're doing to them as well. Like the whole naturalistic and bioactive, like you're creating a slice of nature. Like my tokay enclosure, I'm very proud of. It's very rare I see the tokays themselves, but that would look nice in a living room because it's like a little jungle, you know. So I think it does help without doubt.
Yes, for sure.
Women are natural caregivers. It's in our nature, 100%, 100%.
It's largely true. Yeah,
Yeah. We love women in reptile keeping. We do indeed. Shout out to the women
we
in reptile
bloody do.
keeping.
Yeah.
That's why I rescue, but only one or two at a time. Something that needs that extra care and attention. Is it? See what I mean? Yeah,
Good on you, mate.
yeah. My reptiles and giant African land are my actual children. Love it. I've eaten dried crickets before. Not bad, actually. Okay, interesting. I'm still
Nope,
not
nope,
tempted.
nope.
No. um, what's this one? Did you see Steve Irwin's son doing an interview and Kevin Hart was there fully freaking out at the reptiles? I have seen that, to be fair. It is quite funny. Um, Obviously, Robert Irwin, he does do a good job. He's doing well and he is showing, but it is also quite funny because Kevin Hart, he's a, you know, he's a natural born performer. He's going to overact and things like that. So it is quite funny, to be fair. Um, I've eaten crickets too. They reminded me of pork scratchings.
No, that's something you could get on board with.
Okay, all right, different. I was saying Peter is evil. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, okay, we're caught up. Oh, right, we're 2 hours and nearly 15 minutes in, and I think we've only gone through about 2 questions on the actual list.
We were past some questions, haven't we? I mean, that was supposed to be Q&A, but
It was. I mean, to be fair, we've had some in the actual chat itself, so we'll go with that.
good. Yeah, it's
How
always good
long
to
will
chat.
how long? Okay, so we've sort of answered this anyway, half of it. How long will the worldwide super survey be open until? And then when's the data going to be presented? So obviously you've said end of March it's open until, and then the data can be
Yes.
presented when?
So that actually falls out of my remit into that of a guy called Sid from the Federation of British Herpetologists, who's a professional statistician.
Yeah,
And there's a lot more to it than just adding up some columns in a spreadsheet,
yeah,
because what we have is a very small sample of reptile keepers. What we need is to be able to extrapolate that data out into larger populations. We know what happens with these 10,000 people here. So what happens if you extrapolate that out to the millions of people who live in the UK, the millions upon millions who live in America?
yeah.
I don't know how to do that, but Sid, as a professional statistician, understands that.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So one of Ben's questions was, "What is a whitelist and why are they bad?"
Okay, so where do I start? Let's start at this interesting point. Animal rights campaigners attack us in several different ways. They use several different principles as a means to campaign to end reptile keeping and pet keeping in general. They say that these animals are difficult to look after and they suffer terrible welfare issues in captivity, and that they can't be kept in captivity. That's the main crux of their argument. They say that they're all stolen from the wild, So I don't know how many of your bright pink and yellow ball pythons are stolen from the wild. I'd guess very. Um, they say that they're all going to become invasive in Glasgow and all the other countries where they probably can't be invasive.
Yeah. Yeah.
They say that they're going to eat your children. So,
Yeah.
be careful of that, mate. I know you love your kids, but, run a
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
Um, and they say that you can catch your next global COVID pandemic from your pet bearded dragon. That's essentially the thrust of all of their arguments. And they
Yeah.
used to use each one of those arguments in on its own, really, as an excuse. But what's happened in the last, I think it's probably 10 years, maybe even longer, but really to any great effort in the last 10 years, is that they've come up with the holy grail, the big end boss of all animal rights campaigning, which is the positive list. And this positive list is sold as a panacea, as a solution cure for all of those problems. And what a positive list is, in fact, a positive list is also sometimes known as a white list. I think it's often known as a white list in the States. And a
Okay.
white list is the opposite of a blacklist. So a blacklist, as you probably appreciate, is a list of things that are forbidden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a white list is the opposite. A white list is a list of things that are allowed. So a white list of reptiles, a positive list of reptiles, is a list of reptiles that you're allowed to keep. And historically speaking, those lists have been very short. For example, Norway has a positive list that's just 19 animals long. Yeah. And when it was developed, it took years and years and years for all of the investigations into whether these animals made suitable pets to be completed for each of those species. So you had to look at invasive risks, about human health risks, about welfare risks, all this stuff. So they came up with 19 species. On that list of species, there are some really, really random animals that you wouldn't believe. So, for example, Corallicin hydris, is it a garden tree boa or an Amazon tree boa?
Okay.
Who thinks they're the best
That's
animal to have on a
yeah, that's such a random one to have on the
pet?
list. Yeah.
And there's a few others on there that we can't remember them now, but essentially it turns out that that list was produced by the hobbyists who was in consultation with the government, who said, oh, could you put this animal on the list, please? Because that's what I've been keeping illegally for the past sort of 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how the list come about. It's random. It's got nothing to do with welfare. In fact, it actually harms welfare. Positive lists harm
Yeah.
welfare because let's use Norway as an example again. In Norway, when there was an absolute ban on keeping reptiles between 1977 and 2017, there's an absolute ban on keeping reptiles. But
Wow.
of course,
As long as that.
um, sensible people ignore stupid laws. So there were at least 100 or more like 110,000 reptiles in Norway in that time illegally. There was
Yeah.
even a thriving retail trade of shops selling equipment and food for these animals that didn't exist because they're illegal. So
Yeah.
people were keeping those animals illegally, whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in that time, conversation today with somebody who's asking about keeping monitor lizards. You wouldn't be able to do that because they're illegal. And by asking you, he's probably opening himself up to the possibility of prosecution. So you're not, if you keep animals illegally, you can't ask for specialist advice.
Yeah.
Neither can you take them to the vet. So positive list good for welfare? Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for conservation or good for invasive species? No, because if you've got an illegal species and you need to get rid of it, what are you going to do with it? You can't take it anywhere to be, rehomed. So you're probably going to release it. Um, Good for human health. Like you go into a store, you buy a reptile. It says, look, make sure you wash your hands so you don't catch salmonella. That kind of stuff. Have those conversations. You can't educate people about keeping them properly or feeding them properly or general kind of, hygiene to stop them catching diseases.
Yeah.
So don't be fooled that the positive list is the panacea for all of these supposed issues that aren't really big issues anyway. Yes, they exist, but they're relatively small in context. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
just sold as an opportunity to curtail keeping. Yeah, and they say I watched a recent European. It was for the Intergroup for Animal Welfare, I think it was, that presented to the European Commission that said it's a flexible thing, so you can add species on. I have never seen one positive list that has had a species added onto it.
Yeah.
It's very much like the CITES regulations. All of the animal rights campaigners will campaign for uplisting and more regulation. They will never approve downlisting and deregulation, no
Yeah.
matter how sensible it is. So the
Yeah.
idea that they would just go, oh yeah, let's add another couple of species on, such bollocks. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won't do it. Um,
Yeah.
oh, I feel just a little rant then.
Yeah.
But positive lists are goddamn awful,
Yeah.
terrible, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah. Well, we asked the question and we got an answer. So thank you. Very good one. Very, very good one. Well, to be fair, I think this probably ties into it, but another one from Ben. What's a few of the current biggest threats to the UK hobby? I'm assuming we've probably covered most of them anyway, but if you could, if there were a couple you just rattle off.
So positive lists are certainly a problem.
Yeah.
They're probably the biggest problem. I think CITES 2 animals are probably going to become the next big issue. Um, Here's a big tip for everybody who's watching. Keep as much paperwork as you can to prove the progeny and legal acquisition of every animal that you keep, from corn snakes and bearded dragons to, green tree monitors, blue tree monitors. Everything you own, make sure that you have an enormous paper trail and paper file of where
Mm.
you got that. We want to see vet bills. We want to see buying enclosures. We want to see receipt from the people that you bought them from, because as has been shown in other species in other parts of the world, animals can be added to banned list and CITES, added to CITES regulations at the drop of a hat, and that hat is actually completely ridiculous quite often.
Mm.
Ball pythons were banned in Spain because
Yeah.
they thought that this West African snake could become invasive in Mediterranean Spain, like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Californian king snakes and all of the Lampropeltis sketchula group have been banned across the whole of Europe because they're invasive in Gran Canaria. So ridiculous laws happen for species that are just couldn't be regulated. And one of the big bones of contention for, especially for CITES, is was this was this CITES protected animal legally acquired, or was it smuggled in from the wild and passed off as captive bred?
Yeah.
Now, it's going to be difficult to prove legal progeny of corn snakes because they want it to be proven back several generations back to the wild. So I don't know where all those corn snakes came from and who bought them in and everything else, but this is the level of ridiculousness that's being asked. So protect yourself by having as much paperwork as you probably can. That's probably a big issue.
Yeah.
What else? Honestly, it's an absolute random potluck jackpot as to what can come, what ridiculous thing come out next. If they can ban ball pythons in Spain based on no science whatsoever, if they can ban king snakes in Poland, like they can ever become invasive there. Gran Canaria is closer to Africa than it is to Europe. So the odds on them becoming invasive anywhere in Europe is extremely slim indeed.
Yeah.
Fascinating fact for you. I've worked at a zoo in Gran Canaria, and a friend of mine lives over there. I go over there a lot. So I've caught wild, invasive Californian king snakes over there. The population in the north of the island are the normal coloured ones. The population in the south of the island are albino Californian king snakes, invasive wild in Gran Canaria.
Oh,
Blow your mind. Yeah, exactly.
wow.
Yeah.
Is there reasoning behind that? Is there a science behind it, or?
Um, no, I think that there's just different populations been released in different areas. How they got there or why they got there, speculation abounds. But the ones that
Right.
got
Okay.
released in the north were normals. The ones that got released in the south are albinos. But the
Wow.
idea that albino snake, a bright pink and white snake, could live in the wild, being so obvious against its background, um, baffles me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
captive snakes can be rewilded.
Yeah. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Poland, like as if these king snakes are going to survive there. I've been to Poland. It's cold. It's cold. I don't think a snake is
Still
going to
banned
survive
there.
very long out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Still banned there. It's ridiculous.
Um,
But do you know what I think is the biggest threat to our hobby right now?
well,
Our community.
yeah,
And the reason for that is that there are elements of our community that look upon the hobby and the trade particularly with disdain and disgust that's not accurate or proportionate. Yes, there are aspects of the trade that need to be tidied up internationally, and there are people in our community that do things badly, but that shouldn't overshadow or detract from the absolutely sterling pioneering work that's being done by the vast majority of keepers. Um,
yeah,
Sorry, I should say the pioneering work being done by advanced keepers, but the sterling work being done by your average bog standard kid with a leopard gecko that is picked up from a pet store that's given him the right information and the right equipment.
yeah,
Even the lowest rung on the ladder for pet stores is reasonably good
yeah,
comparatively. Yes, there are
yeah. Of
bad ones. Yes, there are bad examples.
course there are.
Yes, they could do better. But on the whole, our trade is pretty good. And to be unpleasant about our trade and to attack each other is probably the most saddening thing for me.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's because I'm an old fart and I've seen what the bad old days look like, and comparatively, these good old days are pretty good.
yeah,
Makes me proud. Maybe with the same perspective, they'd be proud and less attacking. But the idea that you'd attack somebody for making slight mistakes, or you know, most people want to learn. Very few people want to purposely, intentionally keep their animals badly.
mm,
So let's just be each other. It was it was Vicky that came up with our strap line that says, "Together we can make a difference."
mm,
And that's one of the things that I am really proud of about RRK is we've been able to embrace so many different parts of the hobby. Um, we've managed to be Switzerland. We've managed to avoid being divisive. And yes, there are people that we follow on Instagram that could probably learn a thing or two. And I hope that by looking at our feed, they'll learn that thing or two and go,
mm.
oh shit, right, okay, this is how you do it.
Leading
We,
by
we just
example.
want to,
Mm,
yeah. I mean, the idea that, and this was one of the conversations I had with Show Me Kitties, and it was a fascinating conversation. She made some extremely good points. But the idea that responsible reptile keeping should be the reptile police isn't something that can be entertained. We
mhm,
neither should be nor we could be. We don't have the resources, we don't have the finances, and even if we did, whose standards would we enforce anyway?
mhm.
Yeah. If you put 20 reptile keepers in a room and ask them for their opinion, you'll come out with 25 opinions,
Yeah,
right? So whose standards are we going to enforce?
yeah,
We've got a pretty good idea of how things could be or should be done or how to do them better.
mm,
But there is no, we could set a standard and we'd upset everybody. It doesn't matter
yeah,
what standard we decided was there, that would upset somebody.
yeah,
What we hope is that people join our community as thousands have done, and we bring everybody up to the level to which they can achieve.
mm,
Um, we don't want to cut anybody's legs off, but my biggest worry about this industry are the people within the industry behaving in a way that will destroy it from within. It's how
Yeah.
cultures and communities routinely fail. It's rarely from the outside. Communities and cultures fail from within, not from without.
Mm. So I'm also part of a team called Educate Don't Berate. A few
Yeah,
of
then you
the
guys.
Yeah, a few of the members are in the chat, which, to be fair, Tara has just joined or joined a little while ago. Thank you
Hey,
for joining,
Tara.
Tara. I know Catty's a member as well. And I know, obviously, there's plenty others as well. But that's the message from a group like that as well. It's a case of people are going to make mistakes. People have to start somewhere. People might be in the wrong, echo chambers. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
It's not, as long as you're willing to open your mind, listen, accept, adapt, and just maybe and just be challenged. Not in an aggressive way, but if someone says, by the way, maybe this and that, it's educational, because as we've said it time and time and time again, the second you attack someone, what comes with attack is
goes up.
defense. The defense goes up.
And
That's it.
on the other side of that coin, I would recommend to anybody watching to embrace and appreciate being wrong.
Yeah.
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 It's one of the things that we actively pursue is where are we wrong? What have we done
Yeah.
wrong? Because
Yeah.
if you think you're perfect, if you think you can't learn anything, then you can't improve. In order to improve, you have to embrace the fact that you are imperfect, that there is room for improvement.
Yeah.
So, the, I mean, I'm bringing it back to our videos. When we produce our videos, we get a lot of really nice feedback saying, "Oh, that was awesome. We really liked it. I liked it when you did this bit. I like that point." And thank you very much. We appreciate that feedback. It really does enthuse us that we're doing the right thing.
Hmm.
However, the things that we did right, we probably did them on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably knew that we were doing them. Yeah. What we really like and what we embrace is when people come to us and say, "Hey, do you know, this was good, that was good, but this you could have done better, or did you think about this, or actually that point?" That's what
Mm.
we really embrace. I'm not keen on those that just attack other people without giving them the credit where they're due. Yeah, and this is
Yeah.
something that I think Educate Don't Berate does really well. Like, this and this was good, this and this could have done better. I'd recommend you stop doing this. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's how good feedback works. If you just slag
Yeah.
people off, they won't listen.
Yeah.
But as a keeper and as a content producer, this is what we do. We like to know where we've gone wrong. We know when we're doing a good job. It's when we're doing a bad job that we could do a better job. That's when we can really progress. And that's how we've managed to get better over the last 2 years. And that's how
Hmm.
keepers can get better.
Yeah.
It's a different culture.
And do you know what? You do almost get a sense of pride when you right a wrong as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, just
Oh,
like for
sure.
me personally, I was a rack keeper. I kept royals in
Yep.
racks, and now I'm down to 4 of them in 4-foot enclosures. And even just the
Yeah.
first one going into an enclosure, like the warm, fuzzy feeling, and I was like, I can do this a few more times. And the ones that I don't keep, I'm making sure are going to pet-only homes or homes in fibs. But just seeing them, just being able to come in the evening and see the first royal python I ever had, just basking under a heat lamp, the luminizers dimming. I mean, it's that evening time. I've maybe missed it recently, and I think back to where she was. Obviously, part of my mind is like, I can't believe I kept you like that. But on the other hand, I'm like, but look how you are now. I'm so proud of how far I've come. So, and that's
Well,
because I was wrong, and this I was open to listening and going, okay, I've messed up here, but I can correct it.
people often ask us what our position is on rack breeding, and my standard response is we don't have one. And the
Yeah.
reason we don't have one is because I am not qualified enough to stick my flag in the sand and say, this is the truth. As we've ascertained, I live on a boat and I haven't kept my own reptiles for 20 years. I enjoy
Hmm.
visiting other people's collections, going and seeing them in the wild, looking at my friends' zoos and things like that. But if you were to ask me the most basic question about bearded dragon keepers, I would say, not my forte anymore. Let me put you in touch with somebody who knows what they're talking about, because my experience is from before we hit the new millennium, you know.
Yeah.
So what do I know about rack keeping? Relatively little. Yeah, I know we all kept our animals in racks back in the day. I know that a lot of people keep their animals in racks today, and these are some of the people that I respect as human beings. I respect their knowledge and I understand their reasonings for doing so. Yeah. The other thing to consider is that there's racks and then there's ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we calling a rack, and what have we done to that rack to make it better? What kind of sizes are we talking about? What kind of enrichment are we talking about? I don't know. I mean, even Justin Kabolka at Kinova in America, I went to his place in where is he? Atlanta, Georgia. And obviously, he's a ball python breeder. He keeps most of his animals in racks. But what he also does is he develops snakes that he's bred, and what is it? Um, he prepares them in enclosures ready to go out to pet keepers. So if you're going to keep your animal in an enclosure, they bring it up in an enclosure, and then it's ready for you when you want it.
Mm.
I went over to one of the big reptile breeders in the USA and saw their rack systems for ball pythons. And this is an organization that sell um, ball pythons to PetSmart by the hundreds of thousands each year. So ball pythons that are bred in racks and are born in racks and live in rack systems go out into into PetSmart and get sold into vivariums. So everybody who tells you that ball pythons can't live in enclosures is clearly wrong,
Hmm.
because if ball pythons could not live in enclosures, then all the ones that get sold into PetSmart wouldn't do well, would become a very bad for PetSmart to sell, and therefore PetSmart would stop selling them, and therefore these breeders would stop breeding them.
Hmm.
So what we've pissed off the rack breeders by saying that yes, they can live in vivariums. We've pissed off the vivarium people by saying that there are people who keep them in racks and they seem to do okay, and there isn't any evidence that they do badly. They live long, they breed well, they lay loads of eggs. Yeah. So these are the two conflicting bits of evidence that I have, and I'm not clever enough or experienced enough to decide where to stick a flag, or indeed if a flag needs to be stuck. Cleverer people than us will come to those conclusions over time as
Hmm.
that oil tanker gets to its end position. Um, what we do is we make information available. That's our job, to take the data and make information available. We
Hmm.
can talk about bone density in ball pythons that are kept in vivariums compared to those kept in racks. The ones in vivariums have better bone density. Is the necessity for a slightly higher bone density necessary for welfare? That's a question for people who know more about the topic than me.
Hmm.
Vicky and I both do CrossFit. Our bone density is far greater than most other 55-year-olds. Yeah. Are you 55 yet? Are you 54? Sorry, I aged you a year. Um,
You're in
so,
trouble later on now.
so is our bone density an indicator that we enjoy better welfare than 55-year-olds? Well, no, not really. We just do CrossFit. Yeah. Welfare is a philosophical principle, not a scientific principle. We can measure aspects of welfare, but our decision of whether that welfare is adequate or not is a philosophical conversation, not a scientific conversation. I recently came back from Equatorial Guinea in West Africa. It was awful upon awful. The things I saw there are burnt into my very soul. And as a
Mm.
man who thought he'd seen some shit, I've never seen any shit until I went there. Yeah.
Mm.
Their perspective of what good welfare is differs from ours greatly. The Americans' perspective of what they consider good welfare is differs to ours greatly. Your perspective of what good welfare is differs from mine significantly enough, I am sure. Who's right? I don't know. Personal choice and cultural progress will lead us to where we need to be. But asking me where to stick that flag is stupid, because I don't know shit.
It's do you know what the problem I find with most of this isn't whose side to be on, it's the fact that neither side knows how to talk to the other side. It's the
Yes,
fact
and this
that
is
it's
the disparity. This
yeah,
is the black and white.
yeah.
As far as
It's
I'm concerned, anyone who has a black and white polarized perspective on any topic in the whole world isn't
mm,
somebody I want to speak to. Every single topic has nuance,
mm-hmm,
detail, circumstance, considerations. So we should be having sophisticated topics, and anybody who's
100%.
attacking somebody else for doing one thing or the just isn't part of our
Mm-hmm,
conversation. You,
yeah.
the government working groups I work on the principle that we can all get along and play nicely and be adults. You get evicted from government working groups real quick if you act like a dickhead. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
quite right too. We don't work with anybody that's just wanting to be antagonistic or to, you know, throw their weight around. We don't work with them. Yeah,
mm,
we can only work with sensible adult people who can have logical discussions about these topics. And
mm-hmm,
thankfully, there's plenty of people on both sides of that conversation who can have logical conversations.
mm,
Um, I have spoken to Francis Toscari about this in great detail, and we've had fabulous discussions. Have we agreed on anything? I don't know, but I defer to his greater knowledge. I've had conversations with the big ball python breeders, and did we agree on everything? I don't think so. But again, I defer to their greater knowledge. Um, I'm just here to learn and to understand. And
yeah,
anybody who's just making arguments, they're not part of the conversation.
yeah. Because I think the
Let's
art of
let's work
discussion
together.
is, yeah, the art of discussion is dying. It really is. And it's not even just in
Oh
this; it's
man,
just
yeah,
in all walks of life. You look at
very true.
again media and politics. Left wing, right wing. No one talks anymore. I believe this. I believe
True.
that. Then we can't get on. Then we can't talk. Then we
My
can't
enemy is my
discuss.
enemy. Yeah,
And it's awful.
I
There's
hear you.
nothing worse than not being able to talk. Like I will talk till I'm red in the face with anyone about pretty much anything. If I don't agree with you, it doesn't mean I'm going to go stop talking. Don't care. I'm off. Let's talk. Let's
Exactly.
discuss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a shame, really, but
The,
it's yeah.
the idea of our process is to really find collaboration and agreement. Yeah. You and I will disagree about some stuff. I like you enough to have a conversation with you about anything, and I'm sure we'll agree on stuff. The idea that I dislike you if we disagree about something. The world is this great soup of influences and information and culture and you know community and all of these things that influence how you feel. It's impossible for us to fog nicely, perfectly with everybody or even my
Hmm.
wonderful wife, who is the person I love most on this planet and get on with best. There's things about me that thoroughly piss her off.
Hmm.
And, you know, we won't agree on those. But there you go. We still get on.
Yeah.
You still love me, don't you, babe? She does still love me.
Did you get a little thumbs up there? Yeah, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's true. It's absolutely spot on. But again, hopefully with the likes of yourselves, hopefully with little old educate, don't berate, things like that. Hopefully we are
Mhm.
all trying to just open up the
On the right
conversation and get
path.
to the point. Just get us on the right path because at the end of the day, we do, technically speaking, have a common enemy. Which is the
Yeah.
antis, which is the people
And
trying to
that
ban the
is the main point. That
yeah.
is the absolute main point. We disagree about generally petty bullshit.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's holier than thou virtue signaling that usually
Hmm.
leads to the biggest problems of it. The
Yeah.
people who get on with things and do stuff are generally moving away from the arguments and the argumentative people, while the sensationalists over here are kicking up their views on YouTube. We're just over here enjoying our reptiles, getting along,
Hmm.
learning stuff, conversations. That's how I view it.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the the full-time ball python rack breeder doesn't want reptiles to be banned. The naturalistic bioactive I only have 3 species keeper doesn't want reptiles banned.
Yeah,
So there's your common ground. Like once we can sort out our joint problems, then maybe we can get into the semantics of who's keeping what how. So, it's
yeah.
yeah, it is an
I can
interesting one for
I can
sure.
guarantee to you that those ball pythons breeders that I have spoken to love their animals any less than we do. Yeah, none of those ball python breeders want the worst for their animals. None of the ball python breeders I spoke to have a higher regard for money than for welfare. Yeah, every time you bring money into animal keeping, there is a balance between commerciality and welfare. Always, whether it's
Hmm.
farming, fishing, reptile keeping, there is a balance, and we usually end up on the right side of that balance. Yeah, over time, water finds its own level,
Hmm.
and the culturally accepted ways of doing these things find their balance. And the ball python breeders that I've spoken to are equally passionate about their keeping and equally, what's the word, convinced that they understand their animals, that they have watched them, that they are doing the best for their animals. Um, there's lots of ways that we could improve welfare for everyone here. Everyone here could have larger enclosures. Yeah,
Mm.
everyone here could do something to, supposedly improve the welfare of their animals. But it's absolutely necessary. And if you don't do that, are you subjecting your animal to poor welfare? For example, until September last year, we owned a little white terrier dog called Puck. He was an asshole. Yeah, he was. Puck loved to roll in fox poo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just because he wanted to do it, does that mean that we had to facilitate him doing it? Because we stopped him rolling in fox poo, does that mean that we're, not giving him the enrichment or the enjoyment or the natural behavior that he would want? Are we infringing his welfare for not giving him that? These are the questions. We curate our animals' natural behaviors to make them into the pets that we want and need.
Mm. Yeah.
Was that me
Yeah.
getting philosophical?
It was, but I'm enjoying every second of it. But what is funny is Paul is back and he said, "How is Riddler still awake?" I'm going to be honest with you. This is very, very far past my bedtime, and my head is starting to hurt a
Is it?
little bit. So we might have to start.
I have
I'm
this
not
effect on
renowned for
people.
being up this late. This is the problem. So um, we'll have it. We'll keep going for a
Mm,
little bit, but I'll have to start wrapping up too. I've got the kids by myself tomorrow
That's
as
all,
well,
mate.
so that's going to be fun. Um,
When
duh,
we
duh,
were
duh, duh,
talking
duh.
about how long it was going to be, I told you I can go all day, mate. You
I
just put,
know,
put
I
a coin in
know.
the back of my head and we'll go.
I love it. Um, so you've had so Show Me Kitty said I would disagree. I feel there are many breeders who are just in it for the money. Cat
There are
agreed.
some, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, talking about pyramid schemes. Yeah, um,
yeah. I think
I
we can.
still
There
stand
are some.
by. Yeah, I still stand by what we said on my pod. We should just show the good so we don't feed the bad. To be fair, you did miss that part. To be fair,
Good
Paul,
point.
we were saying that a lot. The fact that we're trying to lead by example, and whilst everyone's fighting amongst themselves, we're trying to show the good and help people. You know, because Tony even said like there's people that they follow that maybe aren't on the right
Should do
tracks,
better.
but instead of
Yeah.
attacking, you show what's right, you show what's good, and you hopefully lead by example.
And to be
So
honest, I
let's.
agree with the statements that have come through. That yeah, there are breeders that are just interested in the money. There are definitely, and we want those to book up their ideas, and we should ideally be showing them what our community is really all about to get them on the right track. On the whole, my
Mhm,
experience has been good, a net force for good, with a few stragglers and arseholes thrown in.
mhm, yeah. Um, right. So seeing as Kat is staying strong, as she's still here, she asked, "What's Tony's favourite colour?"
Red.
Red. Okay, lovely job.
Yeah.
Um, let's go for two more. One of which is another one from Kat, who said, "What are some goals for 2025 for RRK?"
2025, right then. So we're about to have our AGM, which is a bit of a grand way of saying we're having a meeting to decide where our focus is going to be. And excuse me, part of that focus will be to replicate the success we've had in the UK and the USA. So, excuse me. So if you look at GDP, just at gross domestic product, the USA makes up 65% of the world's economy. So it stands to reason that if we're going to make a dent in the mission that we have, we need to make a dent in the USA. We've been in conversations with US ARC about collaborating with them. We're collaborating with ZZF in Sweden, PVH in Holland, Zorf in, ZZF in Germany, Zorf in Sweden. We're in conversations with people in South Africa, Australia, Belgium. So we're kind of satelliting out into all these other countries. But the USA is an important part of what we do. We need to get our messages out there to address the issues that are happening just the same in the USA. The problems that we face are the same no matter what animals we're keeping and no matter where in the world we live. The problems that we face are the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit like turning up in the USA and saying, hello, I'm from the future. These are the problems that you will likely experience. If we can do with you now what we didn't do in the UK 10 years ago, we might be able to. And I'm not saying the USA is 10 years behind in reptile keeping. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the animal rights campaigns that they have over there are kind of very much the same as the ones we've been enduring over here. The recent Pomona show in California, is it? Has
Mm-hmm.
just seen animal rights campaigners outside the doors of that show. So, we know what that feels like. We know what to do about that. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a busy one then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite lucky. I've got sisters over in the USA, so we can go and hang out with those, and
Ideal.
at least we can do it cheaply. So
Let's go for. I tell you what. Let's go for one last one because, like I say, my head hurts. I'd love to carry on. I'd love nothing more than to carry on, but
come back
I'm
another day.
feeling it. So
Yeah.
this last one is tell us a positive story to come out of Responsible Reptile Keeping's work.
Where do I focus? I think. Oh God, I'm torn. The most positive thing is that we've built a profile that's garnered the support of the vast majority of the people that we consider stakeholders, and that is business, breeders, keepers, everybody. We don't seem to have made any enemies. And what that's allowed us to do is grow our profile to the point where we're extremely visible now on online. So we're a bit like a shop front for the international reptile trade. So anybody that wants to interact with different aspects of the trade can usually find where they need to go through us. And this includes journalists, researchers, governments, advocacy organizations, etc., etc. We've been contacted by all these different agencies that want information about reptiles, and it may be that we can help, or it likely is that we'll point them in the right direction to get hold of the right people. For example, we ought to finish off by explaining why we're running the survey and how that, which was reminded to me by, I was in touch with a researcher from America who's interested in the difference in longevity between the different sexes of species of reptile. So
Mm-hmm.
do male box turtles live longer than female box turtles? Do male bearded dragons live longer than female bearded dragons? That kind of stuff. And he saw our survey and he was like, do you have that data? So we don't have that specific data, but what we're able to do for him is a little pop-up survey at some point in the future where we ask the specific question that he wants.
Yeah.
We were contacted by the EU Parliament about illegal wildlife trade. when they contacted us, we said, "But have you spoken to our colleagues in Germany, Italy, Spain, Slovakia, France, Belgium, Holland?" "Oh no, we haven't spoken to those." "Well, you absolutely must." So we were able to introduce, those people to speak on their behalf in their countries. This is the opportunity we have as responsible reptile keeping to make things go in the right direction and be present in the conversations and open doors which might have otherwise been closed to us because our community wasn't as visually organized as it could have been online. And that's what we do now. The animal
Yeah.
rights campaign has been saying what they like about us for decades and nobody was correcting them. So
Yeah.
now everybody knows where to come for that information.
Yeah. 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 And it's an incredible step to be taken as well. I think it really is, because it just goes to show that whatever it is you're doing is working. And actually, where some people are fearing for the hobby being taken away, we've got hope. There's
There's hope.
definitely hope,
There's
without
hope,
a
yeah.
doubt. Yeah. So I think that's
And I
incredible.
think without the media side of things, we're fighting a losing battle because the animal rights campaigners will always campaign and they will always tell lies and they will always fight against us. And that leaves a lot of work to be done in Parliament to unravel those lies and to refute that misinformation. Whereas
Hmm.
we can actually do a lot of that work before it even arrives at crisis point, and
Yeah.
which is exactly why we're running the survey. We're lucky in the UK that we have data from two separate surveys. Um, but we use that data in evidence with governments. That's how governments are convinced now. It used to be that we could just turn up and say, "Look, that's bullshit." And they'd say, "How do you know?" And you say, "Well, I've been doing it 40 years. That's how I know." That doesn't work anymore. They want
Hmm.
data. Yeah. So we try to find the data that we enjoy in the UK from other countries, and it doesn't exist. In the UK, we know how many people are keeping reptiles, what species they're keeping, how many of those species they're keeping, where they buy them from, whether they're wild caught or captive bred, what they keep them in, do they breed their reptiles, what's their oldest reptile, countless stuff. So we were using that in all our conversations with government, in all our content, but we couldn't find that information from any other country. It was frustrating. So we decided to repurpose the FBH's survey and make it a bit easier to engage, so that it was easier to fill in with less friction, and launch it worldwide. And what we're going to do with that data, excuse me, what we're going to do with that data when we have it is give it to all of the advocacy organizations that we work with around the world. I know that USARC, Phil Goss at USARC, is really looking forward to getting hold of it, and the other organizations that we work with internationally are as well.
Hmm.
We'll also use that data in our content. So always having to say, "Oh, in the UK, we know this. Oh, in the UK, this happens." We'll be able to be more internationally significant.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
for the people who want to fill in the survey but can't be asked, I'd change your mind by saying everybody who fills in the survey will not only be contributing to this important project, but they'll also get a free subscription to our magazine, our digital magazine. Just fill it in. We'll send you our magazine for free every time. And there's even 3 prizes. You can win either 500 quid, no, dollars, sorry, $500, $300, or $100 if you're a lucky prize winner. So please go and fill it in. It's important to have that data. And what it also does, it makes our communication more compelling and convincing and accurate, which dispels a lot of the issues. So in Spain, they didn't rescind the ball python ban because of the pressure from animal rights campaigners. The public pressure and the media pressure from animal rights campaigners kept the ban in place. We need to do something about that, and we need you to fill in this survey if we're going to do it. So that's a good reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the prize, the potential prize, should just be icing on the cake if you get it. if you
Yeah,
truly care about keeping reptiles and having this hobby in your life, because like we said early on,
just fill it in.
this hobby has saved people's lives. We know that. We know for a fact that reptiles have saved people's lives. So it is so important. It's not just a survey. You're not filling in a quick survey that might win you $500. You're doing really, really important work. So again, as we said
Yeah,
earlier on, it doesn't take long. It's not a very long and arduous survey, and it's incredibly, incredibly important. So if you haven't done so already, please do so. Please do so. So it's very important. But yeah, I tell, and then one more final one just before we start wrapping up. For those of you that have only just joined or anything like that, I'll say again just while we're wrapping up, if you do send a super chat into this, please feel free to do so, because every penny will go to Responsible Reptile Keeping. For those of you that have obviously done so already, thank you. Just know that whatever
thank you very
YouTube and
much.
Apple don't take is going to go straight to Responsible Reptile Keeping. So get your last
Thank
super chats in now if you so wish to do so. But
thank you very
otherwise, I
much.
think yes, no, an absolute pleasure. It's the least that we can do. But with that being said, Tony, I think we'll start wrapping up, because, like I say, as much as I'd love to stay on for another 3 hours, when you start getting the pain in the
It's
back of
past
the
my
eyes.
bedtime as well.
Well,
Yeah,
let me put it this way: the
I have
last
this
few
effect on
nights,
people, if I'm honest.
yeah, the last few nights I've been falling asleep before 9:30. So having me until 11
Work.
o'clock, it's
That's not
it's not
bad.
bad going. Not
Do,
bad going.
do you know what? That sleep is my Achilles heel as well. I can withstand some, unpleasantness and pain, but if you deprive me of sleep, I'm useless. I
Mm,
really am.
yeah,
So I'll need a
yeah.
line in the morning.
Well, this is it, and like I say, unfortunately, I'm up probably early in the morning, and I've got the kids to myself while the missus is at work. So tomorrow's going to be a long day,
Oh, fair play
but it
to
is
you.
what it is. Worth it,
Fair
worth
play.
it. Gary has sent another couple of quid. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you, love you, and every
Thank you,
penny of
buddy.
that will be going to Responsible Reptile Keeping. But before we do wrap up, Tony, have you got anything else that you think is vital that you want to get across to anyone watching, listening? Is there any other points you wanted to make or anything like that?
Um, uh, the other point to make is that the success of our organization and our mission depends on people sharing and interacting with our content. The more
Hmm.
broadly we can send our message out there, the more likely people are to engage with it, and the more likely we are to succeed in our mission.
Hmm.
Joining as a member is always a wonderful thing to do. Of course, we need as much funding and voices behind us when we make our point and say that we're representing, X amount of people. It adds strength to our voice. So if people can share our stuff, comment on our stuff, subscribe, like, that kind of stuff, it sounds boring and it gets battered on by all the everybody on YouTube. Oh, please subscribe. But it actually makes a massive difference to the success or failure of our mission. So please do
Hmm.
that and join if you can. We thank you all for your support. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for having us on here, buddy.
No, it's absolute pleasure, my friend. And maybe we'll have to try and do so again to actually get through some more questions, because we missed quite a few. To anyone
Uh,
watching, if I didn't get to your question, I apologise. But obviously, we had a few answered in here. We obviously were sharing stories and things like that. I don't know where 3 hours has gone, to be completely honest with you. I have absolutely no idea.
well, to be honest, this makes a very good point in that this is a very big job and a very complex topic. And the idea of the average reptile keeper having to understand all of this stuff or to cover it all or to do anything about it is not something we should be asking of the average reptile keeper. You guys enjoy your reptiles. That's what you should do. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be worried about all the stuff that we devolve that job to us and to the advocacy organizer. Oh, my reptile pick. Hey, every month we do a social media bombardment of people sharing pictures of their reptiles, because animal rights campaigners reckon that if you share a picture of your reptile on the internet, it's abusive and you are normalizing reptile keeping, which we thoroughly stand up for normalizing reptile keeping. So
Mm.
first of every month, share a picture on social media of you and your reptile, tag it with my reptile pic, and yeah, it's a great little project. But don't worry about the bans and the other politics. Leave that to us and the advocacy organisations. want somebody to do that work on your behalf, join us as a member, share our stuff. But you guys should concentrate on the number one most important thing, which is enjoying your reptiles. Leave all that
Hmm.
stuff to us. I could talk to you about it for days. I could keep you awake for the next, 3 days talking about this. It never ends. It's a complex topic,
Yeah,
but that's what we do our job for. So,
yeah,
get some
yeah.
sleep and sleep easy.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed your time. It has been very, very interesting, eye-opening, funny. Of course, we've had some laughs as well. So it's always a good time, Tony. I did notice, I didn't manage to put it up, but people were asking if you were going to be at IHS this year. Is there? Do you reckon?
Yes, I am. I won't be at AHH, unfortunately. The Drayton Manor do. I missed it
Yeah.
last year because I was presenting in Norway, but they played our digital presentation on the same day as I was presenting in Norway. So that was pretty cool. As a
That is
digital
cool.
organization, we can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And strangely enough, this year, on the day of the event in Drayton Manor, I'm in Scandinavia again. I've been invited to the
Okay.
Swedish Herpetological Society to present there and present and expand our mission there. So bloody Scandinavians keep stealing. I could be in Drayton Manor hanging out with you lot. But the IHS, yes, I'm pretty sure we'll be there. The organisers there are always kind enough to let us have a space. We'll probably be filming interviews. So, get your hair done, wear your best frock, and it'd be nice to see you.
Excellent, excellent. No, I'm looking forward to that. I really can't wait for that. I do enjoy IHS, so I can't wait. It's always good to
Yeah,
meet new people, catch up with people, because obviously it's like the central hub. But yeah, no,
yes, for
that's
sure.
going to be it's going to be good fun. It's going to be really good fun. But yeah, once again, Tony, thank you very very much for joining. I really appreciate you and your time.
Very well.
Obviously, we extend our thanks to Vicky as well. Appreciate you as well, of
Yes,
course.
she's here.
Yeah.
She does all the work,
Um,
I only sit on podcasts and talk crap. She actually does all the work.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And yeah, hopefully we'll
Okay.
see you at an IHS at some point soon. And like I say, maybe, just maybe, Tony, maybe I'll see you at Tinley in September, but I'm not sure yet. But we'll see. We will
Go
see.
for it.
But yeah, again, thank you to everyone that's watched. I know some of you have been here start to finish the whole 3 hours. That is dedication. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
To people that have popped
my
in and
rubbish
out.
3 hours.
I hope you've all enjoyed it as well. To anyone catching up with it after this, hope you enjoy it as well. But yeah, it's been a good one. So thank you, Tony. But yeah, to everyone else, thank you. Appreciate the super chats, everything. But yeah, we're going to leave you to it now. It's been a pleasure, Tony, and everyone else. We will
You
see you at some point soon.
over and out.
Peace out. There we go. It's going to end.